Okay. The first order of business is the election of officers. And I guess I'll welcome everybody to the January 7th, 2009 HLC meeting, since we don't have an officer or a chair right now. So, first order of business is the election of officers, and the floor is now open for nominations for the office of chair. Are you on? Is your mic on?
You have to ask that.
I will second the nomination.
Suzette Naylor?
Yes.
That's my,
Now this, yes, it's Suzette Naylor.
You do realize
Okay.
They know. They know.
Nominations are now closed for the office of chair, so a viva voce or oral vote will be held. All those in favor of electing Ms. Naylor as chair, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That's it. And now we will, let's see, have nominations for vice chair.
I would nominate John Sharp as vice chair.
I'll second that motion, nomination.
And no other nominations, so oral vote will be held. All those in favor of electing Don Sharp as vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so new chair will conduct the meeting, and Don Sharp is the vice chair for 2009, and Chair Naylor is, again, chair.
Chair. Just
Great. All right.
Okay, let's move on to appointments for subcommittees. Perhaps, I don't know, would you like to run that, Susan, or?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Let's see. We all have our last year's sheet in front of us? Yes, okay. Okay, consent calendar. Who would like to do consent? Dawn, would you still like to continue with that? Or,
If someone else would like to do it, I'd be more than happy to give it up.
Okay.
I would like to do the landscape portion.
Oh, that's right.
do you want to do the whole thing?
You have no choice.
Yes.
Well, now he does. It's not-
I think an architect should do.
Okay.
I personally think Don Sharp would be ideal as the consent calendar person.
All right, I'll do it.
Madam Chair, the ABR is rotating it as a way of being fair to the demands, and I know that is, something
think
that
it's a
we
good
should
idea.
consider.
Yes.
I think they have alternating 3-month periods or 6-month periods. It's something that you want to consider.
Do you wish any discussion on this? Is there any point in discussion?
Don, you're doing it.
Do we need an alternate for,
Yes.
yes,
An alternate.
For consent?
consent,
I would like to take that.
as well as landscape? Great.
Okay, so
that makes it
alternate.
easy.
Okay. And I don't know if we need a...
Yes.
We do? Okay. A liaison to the sign committee?
Where's Stevie?
Steve House was doing that before.
Right. Can you say what
Thursday's bid.
Alternate if
Okay.
Mr. Peugeot, who is now the alternate, will.
No, I already done my share in the Sun Committee, and I've done it several times. It's just I just don't have enough time to do all this. I don't mind being the alternate, but I would like somebody else to
It's on
take
Thursday,
the main
which is a
position.
bad day. It's on Tuesday.
We have moved it on to Tuesdays, right?
Yeah, it's back
Back
to
to
whatever it was before.
Tuesdays.
So it's
It
Tuesdays
used to
in
be
the
on
afternoon.
Thursday, on Wednesday.
It's Tuesdays. Thank you.
It's Tuesday.
Tuesday mornings.
Ooh.
I suppose I could do it.
Good.
Oh, Louise. And is Alex the alternate, or is Ken the alternate?
Peugeot's the alternate.
I
Okay,
certainly
very
know the
good.
ordinance.
Visual art in public places, I believe.
I've been
Commissioner
doing.
Drury, or oh,
I've been doing that.
Oh, you have
and-
been doing
and
that.
I'm willing to do that again. It's always interesting. But perhaps Mr. Drury would like to
I
be my
think Mr.
alternate.
Jury was on the West Beach
Okay.
Art.
So Commissioner Drury's alternate on that one?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then
Drury's on
the
that.
West Beach Art Program Selection
That's
Panel, I
what-
believe Commissioner Drury's doing that.
Do we need an alternate for that, or?
I don't think
Nah,
so.
Okay, good.
Design Awards Subcommittee,
I'll be on that.
I'd like to continue.
okay.
Actually vacancies. We appoint Holden.
And I like that.
Oh, because I'd like to just keep on all of these.
Yeah. But we should have 2 or 3 people on this design awards. It's not that they happen very often, but it'd be
Yeah,
good to get a couple
I'd like
other.
to be on that.
Okay, well, Boucher, Adams, and Sharp was last year.
Perhaps you could explain a little bit for some of the newcomers what exactly is entailed, so that they would have some idea of what they...
That would be great.
Basically, these design awards are rare. They don't have to happen every year, and it's for an exemplary project, either for architecture or landscape architecture, or sometimes it's a person that's done a lot.
So it's
for the
more of a
beautification
city
of the
recognition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a plaque involved, and there's a bronze part of the plaque and a tile part of the plaque, and I believe they're called different things. There's a George Washington Smith Award.
Pearl
There's a
Chase
St.
Award.
Barbara Award, and then there is for landscape a Lockwood DeForest Award.
And there's a Pearl Chase Award also. Pearl Chase.
Madam Chair, I'd like to be in that.
Oh, wonderful.
I've never done that before.
Yes.
You know, nice to
I think that'd be great. Perfect. All right. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so, and actually, Mr. Lemon brought to my attention, we usually kind of just fill the spots that have been vacated by the outgoing commissioner.
Yeah, I think that's
So,
good.
if, in the interest of expediency, maybe we should just look at the spots vacated by Steve House, which would have been the EPV design guidelines. And actually, I know Commissioner Adams wanted to step in there, and now that Steve's off, we can...
EPB.
Exactly, and it's, they're almost completed anyway, so we'll just keep you on there. And the events, I believe that was the other
Oh, man.
one that Steve vacated. So who would like to take his place on that?
You might want to explain that for the newer...
That's HLC get-togethers.
Those are parties.
Yeah. I'll stay on that.
Thank you, Louise.
So Louise,
But I'm on it now
yeah, you are.
because I'm stuck with it.
I would nominate Commissioner Curry for that
Oh.
second spot.
Is it because of my Christmas?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, and then down below, under ad hoc subcommittees, actually, sometimes these kind of fall off.
Yes.
So maybe we should just look at those. The airport is Marie and Peugeot. Do we still need an airport ad hoc subcommittee?
I actually want to, we may not need it, but I was looking at the landscape, so I would just like to be listed on that committee
Okay.
as well, in case it comes up as they move closer toward construction of some kind.
Okay, we'll add your name, and we're going to keep Marie and Peugeot on there.
Yeah.
101, Highway 101 improvements, do we still need that one? No, that comes off. Lower Mission Creek design, is that, we still need that one, and who's on that? Lower Mission Creek is
Adam.
Adams.
And
I was on that one before.
For me,
Lower
you were?
Mission Creek, yeah.
Okay, but I don't know why you're not
I
on
mean,
there,
I
but
was
we'll
there
add your
before.
name. Plaza de la Guerra. That's one that Steve and Dawn were on. Do we still need that one? Yeah, okay.
What is that?
Well, that's the, it's the master plan for the De La Guerra Plaza. It's been kind of bounced back and forth.
That's the
over
Campbell and
last
Campbell plan.
number of years.
Yes.
Curtis.
Curtis.
And who else?
I'll,
Alex Peugeot and Don
yeah.
Sharp?
Is the intent to get that into the general plan?
Yes.
Yes?
The intent was to move ahead with modifications to the plaza
Okay.
through Campbell and Campbell Landscape Architects.
Oh, I see.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, street lighting master plan, I believe Steve House is finally finished that. Is that correct? So I can come on?
Yes. Is that her?
And it's a thing of beauty. I saw a draft of it a few days ago. It's
Yeah.
really nice.
Really great.
433 East Cabrillo, the Waterfront Hotel.
I want to be on that.
Oh,
Who's that? Who's
All right.
Fermina and Robert? Don, do you still want to be on that? Or Alex?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind stepping in with that.
Craig?
Yeah, go ahead.
And you will, Don?
Sure.
Okay. Peugeot's coming off of that one then?
Okay.
That's Fess Parker's.
And then,
Oh, that's Fess Parker. Yeah, that's Fess Parker.
We haven't seen it in 2 years, but
Commissioner Adams wants to be on that one too?
I want Mr. Peugeot to be in.
Which one, the one cast?
Oh, yeah, you can't have a, well, even with 4, it wouldn't. You can have 4, but not 5 of you.
Okay, take me off then.
So Peugeot and Adams on. And Murray off.
Yeah.
Okay, so 433 East Cabrillo Waterfront Hotel Subcommittee or Ad Hoc Subcommittee is Adams, Peugeot, Schellenberger, and Sharp. Okay, and then 813 Anacapa, that comes off the list. So we're done with subcommittee appointments. Thank you.
great.
And before any other words are said, I would like to welcome Craig Schellenberger to the Historic Landmarks Commission.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I think the next item is item C is site visits. Set the date for a group site visit to 2300 Garden Street.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Before you move to the next item, I just wanted to, I'll pass one of these out to everybody, even though you're not all concerned. This is the schedule for the designations subcommittee.
Oh, good.
And the survey subcommittee, and I just wanted to make sure everybody had the schedule, particularly the members.
Thank
I have
you,
it, I'll
thank
give one to
you.
everybody so they know when they're meeting.
May I loop back to one question before we charge ahead on this? The state-of-the-art gallery stage street installation, does that only require 2 people? Because I'd like to be involved in that.
I think we can
Is that
have
only- is that a two-person?
State of the art.
We have, oh, I just threw another list away. Who's on it right now?
It's Boucher as
Commissioner Adams,
permanent
Commissioner
and Adams
Boucher.
as alternate.
Hi, thanks, Jake. How are you?
Right?
We need one. We need one
We only
primary and
need
one
one.
alternate.
Okay.
One primary and one alternate.
Okay.
I'll be happy to stay on.
As alternate?
No, I'm on as primary.
Yes.
Okay, well, I believe,
She's primary.
I know. So
Louise is.
if she wants to give it up to Commissioner Murray.
I'll give up my alternate to Drew.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so state-of-the-art alternate is Drury. And primary is Boucher.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, back to the site visit
Good.
date.
I'd just like to,
Yes,
Thank you very much.
It's going to be a site visit to 2300 Garden Street to look at changes to a project that's previously been approved by the Historic Landmarks Commission. And they found that the changes couldn't be built as approved, so there are some changes to the design. It will be noticed. It's not going to be on for January 21st because they are going to be preparing an addendum to the structures report for you to look at, and that's not even in the works yet, so hopefully maybe by February 4th meeting, I don't know. But you will all go out and meet there at an appointed time to have the applicant take you through the proposed changes. It'll be, I guess, easier for you to visualize if you go to the site. So if everybody brought their calendars, what would be a good day and time? Do you have any brothers, Mary?
Mark Appleton would be available.
Come up.
Could you introduce yourself for the record?
Hi, I'm Mary Rose. I'm the agent for the applicant. This is the St. Anthony Seminary site, and part of what we're dealing with are changing levels of the ground and accessibility issues, plus some other items in terms of making part of the structures fit and dealing with it. And we thought it would be easiest to visualize it if you saw it on site, to see where we're looking at some grade changes and some other things. It would be, Mark Appleton is the design architect on this part of the project, and he's generally best available on Mondays. So I don't know if that works for you, middays of a Monday coming up before the 4th. Alex is going to try and get you the report very quickly. She's actually been working on things. So we'd like to try and get you things so we could be on the February 4th agenda.
We were also supposed to hear back from the owner when she got back from Europe regarding landmarking the building.
Right, and that will be at some point. We'll get you the letter. She has considered it, and it's more of a matter of timing, and then also whether these particular changes would be acceptable as part of the
Okay, well, I'll get in touch with Alex
issues.
regarding the reports and make sure that we get that all
Right.
squared away.
And we do know that we need to get back to the subcommittee on designations on the landmarking issue.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Right.
First Monday of the month, the first and the 4th.
So up for contention is a Monday at this moment. First and fourth are out. First and third are out. First and third are out.
Okay, so that's out for January.
It would be a
then.
half-hour meeting or an hour meeting, or how long do we have to be there?
I think an hour would be good, because to really walk the site and see what it is. I mean, it's an 11-acre site. We really want to walk you through and see what our challenges have been. I think
A whole
an hour.
A whole hour.
An hour.
Is Monday the 2nd before the meeting a bad date, or
Before
it's good for me?
Monday the 2nd, before which meeting?
Well, if they're looking to get on the February 4th agenda, Monday the 2nd would be fresh in our minds for the meeting.
If it makes it onto the, hopefully it will. But
Yeah.
Can you do it?
I can't do it on the first Monday.
Cannot. Louise cannot
I
do
see.
it.
First Monday.
How about the previous Monday, and any problem starting early, like at 8:30? Yeah.
That would be January 26th.
January 26th. Yeah.
Okay.
That would probably be better.
January 26th.
Does that work?
Possibility. What time?
Maybe 8:30 to 9:30. Is that what you want us to book?
8:30 to 9:30,
Yeah.
That's fine.
January 26th.
And if we can make it, we don't have to take the whole hour, right? If we don't have to.
We'll only take what we need, but
Okay.
if you can
Very
have an
good.
hour, then if there's questions, we aren't cut short.
Very good.
And I probably won't be in town.
8:30 to 9:30 on Monday, January 26th, for the site visit to 2300 Garden Street. And where should they meet? I mean, pretty big piece of property there.
We will arrange for parking on the lawn area and the overflow parking for you. So if you drive up, we'll have somebody there to direct you. If you come in the main entrance at 2300, we'll direct you, and we can park you on the lawn, which is our overflow parking.
Why don't you send an email to Susan, who will forward to us,
and we'll
talking about
have
arrangements.
we'll have a map.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because it's for the public's knowledge
I
too.
see.
Members of
So
the
they
public
can-
may
That's
come to this
right.
if they
And we
so
will
choose.
we'll arrange for overflow parking
Great.
for that,
I see.
for the public,
Thank you.
for the public and the commission for that day.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is public comment. Is there anyone here from the public who'd wish to comment? Seeing none. Next item is approval of the minutes of December the 10th, 2008.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I have a correction
Oh,
on page
good.
12.
Yes.
Okay, page 12, down at the bottom, item 5 in the motion, it says, it's just wording. It says reinvestigate the bedding in the entry planter. Can we change that to say bed planting in the entry planter versus bedding?
Thank you.
Thank you. Page 12.
Thank you. I told you I was no landscape architect.
So you're going to put a nice big quilt there, right?
Reinvestigate the bedding.
The bedding, well,
the bed planting.
Are there any other comments or corrections or revisions to the minutes? If not, all those in favor for approving the minutes as corrected?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain.
2 abstentions. Commissioner three abstentions. Commissioner Peugeot, Schallenberger, and Curtis.
Schallenberger,
Peugeot and Curtis.
and Curtis, thank you.
Excellent minutes, I might say.
Yes.
As always.
They were
Yes.
right on it.
Yes.
Tough to do.
Next item is announcements.
I'll make one.
All right.
Just as you were commenting on the minutes, I'm not sure if everybody's been informed, but Gabriella was selected the employee of the quarter.
Yes.
And so she's got a nice little plaque and a photograph up by the elevator on the second floor. And we're all very proud of her and glad to have her. And she's been a wonderful asset.
Yes, she has.
Well deserved, I
Yes.
think. Yes.
And Madam Chair, the consent calendar is...
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss that? Yes, consent calendar. I skipped right over.
Okay, item A, 1117 State Street was final approval as submitted. Item B, 100 East Carrillo Street was final approval as submitted. Item C, 528 State Street was final approval as submitted.
All right.
Item D, 633 East Cabrillo Boulevard was final approval as submitted. Item E, 424 State Street was final approval as submitted. Item F, 1715 State Street was final approval as noted. Item G, 418 State Street was final approval as submitted. Item H, 209 Paseo Nuevo was final approval as submitted. And item I was at 1220 Chapala Street was final approval as submitted. Those were reviewed by Commissioner Sharp, except for item I, which was reviewed by Commissioner Adams.
I'll make a motion to ratify the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Drury. Next item then would be announcements, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a couple of announcements here. Chair Naylor will need to leave the meeting at 7 p.m. Actually, hopefully it won't go that late.
You never know.
Commissioner Murray will be stepping down from items 8 and 14 at 1032 Olive Street and 1727 Prospect Avenue, respectively, and will leave the meeting at 5 p.m.
I need to mention, I need to step down on item 13, Mission Ridge Road.
Thank you. And then the project of 710 Anacapa Street, which was postponed to today's meeting for final approval, has been postponed indefinitely at the owner's request. So somebody could make a motion to postpone that.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries.
Who seconded? Who seconded that?
I second.
Thank you.
He sounds like
You can count on me for a second.
No other announcements?
Yes,
Oh, good.
I have a community announcement. January 26th, Ed Masria is speaking at UCSB. Tickets are free, I believe at Campbell Hall. I'm not sure how you get tickets, but just an alert there on Ed Masria, who talks about green living.
Architecture 2030, which I think
Architecture
is,
2030,
going
yes.
to be very important. Commissioner Drury?
Yes, I have two announcements. There's an Oak Group show at the Museum of Natural History that runs through this coming Sunday. And it's in that they've sort of dedicated that new gallery, the Luria Gallery, we were lucky to get in there. And also in this last Monday's LA Times is an article about a Santa Barbara man who crafts furniture out of toppled city trees. His name is Rob Bjorklund, and he has his own mill. And I'll pass this around if you wish to read it. It's a wonderful article on recycling wood that would normally be put into a fill. I also, I hope it's not beyond my purview, but I spoke to him about the Montecito Country Club badminton court. And he was very interested in that because he said all that wood is great wood to recycle. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to put that in the announcement thing and pass this around if you wish to read it. It's a wonderful article.
Thank you. Any further announcements?
Just regarding the 26th site visit, I won't be able to be at that visit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item is subcommittee reports. Have we any subcommittee reports? None.
Madam
How
Chair?
are the,
Go, I'm sorry.
how are the guidelines coming?
We are closing in on it.
Oh, yeah.
Really closing in on it. What did you say?
We had a tentative date, well, I thought it was going to be, we were shooting for distributing the draft guidelines to the HLC for review on February 4th, but that might have been moved back 2 weeks, so it's going to be sometime in February. And we're
And
really excited. They're looking really gorgeous and
Yes.
lots of great information and clarification and really great.
And
Great
just
product.
so the Commission knows, this last item that we were talking about is, I think, the essence of the guidelines, which is how do we define compatibility? So you can see why this is sort of a little lump in the throat and has to be passed over. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
As far as the subcommittee on the West Beach Art Program, I don't have any new information except to say that we've narrowed it down to 2 people, and I'll have more information by the next meeting, 21st.
Thank you. Next item would be possible ordinance violations. If there are any, please fill out a blue slip.
Madam Chair,
Oh,
I have 2 or 3 things I'd like to ask about. One, the Mission Creek Bridge. Has this commission been contacted in any way on the reconstruction of that bridge? Because I read in the paper that they're going to go ahead with it, and it seems to me that's a landmark and of vital importance.
Well, not going to go ahead with it. They've gone ahead with it. There was a little bit of maybe misconstrued in terms of what the proper procedure would be. Technically, it's a repair because they're taking the stones apart and putting them back, in theory, exactly where they were. I was in contact with Rick Fulmer, the streets manager, a number of months ago, about the contracts. I knew they had submitted the bids and that the bids had come in. They were in the selection process. And then I hadn't really heard anything else back from them until I started getting a flurry of phone calls about the work going on the bridge. I did go out and inspect it. It appears that they're doing appropriate work, but I'm not an expert on stone repair. I did caution them about some of the issues with the capstones. They need to be put back exactly where they were. It's not mix and match time on that. They are aware that I have a copy of the scope of work, which indicates that they are aware that they have to be very careful with the moisture content in the mortar so that it's weaker than the stones, so you don't end up cracking stones. The color of the mortar needs to be aged to match what's on the bridge currently. Any replacement stones, and they'll probably, I think the capstones look like they all survived, but some of the smaller stones where the impact were cracked and may have to be replaced. Where stones are being replaced, I did clarify that they would be using Santa Barbara sandstone, quarried locally, so that we're using the authentic material. And the project, they're expecting it to be complete in 2 weeks.
I believe on that project there might be some landscaping issues too, and I made that suggestion. I believe this is the one over by the train station.
No, this is the stone. This is the stone bridge. This is the stone bridge up by the Mission. It is the oldest bridge in the county. 1891, I believe, was the construction date. It has been altered. It's been widened once, and there's some plans to maybe widen it again. But that side where that railing is all original material, and so that's why we want to be very careful with how that's treated. And like I said, I went out and looked at it. It looked to me like they're doing the work correctly, and we'll keep an eye on things out there.
thank you. Madam Boucher, you have 2 more, huh?
Yes, I do.
One quick comment. I believe that's a city landmark.
Yes.
That is a city landmark, yes.
And
Well, like I said, because they weren't altering, they were putting it back exactly like it was. There's no change. They went ahead with a shortcut to the permitting process. I would have liked to have possibly had a short presentation before this commission, but it was also a timely thing where, and I've one of the people that's been doing it, been harping on them for more than a year to get the thing done, and so I guess they just figured they would get it done. But we'll keep an eye on things, and hopefully everything will work out for the better out there.
Thank you.
The main thing is that the capstones all appear to have survived the impact, and they're all in one piece. So we'll have all the original capstones back on place.
Thank you. Two more, Louise?
Yes. The second one is the antennas. I'm just bringing this up on top of the Granada. It looks to me as though they've completed the work and that thing is still sitting up there. So I just wanted to bring it up as something we should keep our eye on.
Yeah, they're still within their 18-month window, and although the exterior of the roof appears to be complete, there's a lot of interior work going on in there. There's interior spaces that are being configured, and the antennas will be moved into that attic within the 18-month window. I'm under the understanding that they're on time with that, because
Okay.
I've asked that
Thank
question
you.
also.
Thank you. And the third one is the city landmark at 914 Anacapa. There's been some repair work done on the building, which is not very authentic. And, for example, they've done some, that's the Coda Knox house.
Yes, the old moped, the little structure across from
No.
Paradise? No. 914.
It's the Coda Knox building. It's across from the Lobero Theater.
It's the brick.
Yes.
Oh, God.
They did such things as do some spray painting of white over some splashed mud, which shows through the white. It's a very slipshod job, and I felt that it might be wise if they were put on notice. I believe it belongs to the state of California, but the trust is managing it, and they have some sort of a, maybe you know, Don, if the trust has a company that's doing repair work. They totally took off the back porch and put it back not the way it was before, and so on and so forth. So I thought I would bring it up.
I'll have to take a look into that. This is the first that I've heard of it.
Okay.
It is an important building. It's a brick house. It's one of the only 2 or 3 still standing in the city. It was actually a residence built of brick.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple building, but elegant at the same time. And so we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louise.
That's it.
Great. We'll move on to the regular agenda now. The first item is an archaeology report for 423 West Victoria Street. Is there anybody here for that? Please come up. Please come up and introduce yourself, and if you'd hit that little button to make that green light brighter, you'll, yes, thank you.
My name is Kevin Strasberg. I work with Parks and Recreation, and I am on the project management team.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Dr. Glasser reviewed the report and endorsed Mr. Bass's recommendation that, based on the fact that human remains have been previously found in fill deposits, archaeological monitoring of earth-moving activities should occur.
Great. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries. Congratulations. Next item is 411 East Carrillo Street.
Madam Chair, Dr. Glasser reviewed the report and concluded that the archaeological investigation supports the report's conclusions and recommendations that it is considered there would be minimal risk of adversely impacting cultural resources if the proposed construction plan were to be implemented, and accordingly, no further archaeological work is recommended or necessary at this time.
May I have a motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a need for a historic structures report on this, since I think there's a proposal to demolish the building?
It hasn't made it across my desk as of yet. The archaeological reports often go well ahead of, the way the process works goes well ahead.
You can take that.
May I have a motion then?
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
You want that?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries to approve.
Who made
Mr. Curtis.
Curtis, and who?
I second. Yeah.
Seconded.
I just,
Who abstained?
No one?
No one abstained?
I just have a comment. Some of the pages are, you can't read them So I just
Oh, yes,
think
that's
next time we should have a little quality control on this stuff because we do read them.
Yeah, I don't go through each report. What I do is a cursory check to make sure that the
Yeah.
photos are in color, that the UCSB Information Center letter is at the back of it, but I didn't notice that the photocopying wasn't of high quality.
Thank you. The next item is the archaeology report for 416 Montgomery Street.
Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and concluded that the archaeological investigation supports the report's conclusions and recommendations that it's considered there would be minimal risk of adversely impacting cultural resources if the proposed construction plans were to be implemented, and accordingly no further archaeological work is recommended or necessary at this time.
May I
I
have
move we accept the report.
Second?
Is there any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That motion carries. I'm now 15 minutes ahead of item number 5. I'm technically allowed to talk about... Oh, I mean item number 4. Uh-oh. All right, good. 1820 De La Vina Street.
Yes, Madam Chair, Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and concluded that the archaeological investigation supports the report's conclusions and recommendations that as the proposed project would not have the potential to result in significant impacts on either prehistoric or historic archaeological resources, no mitigation measures are required.
May I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I sometimes feel that these archaeological reports don't have adequate photographs. And I'm very concerned about, I'm not sure which these houses are, but they could be historically valuable. And I don't have a problem with the report, but I have a problem with the potential for these buildings to be significant, because I can't see which they are. All I have is this one little thing that shows the wall in front.
Well, that would be an historic structures report, I think, Louise, and this is...
I'm aware of that.
Oh,
I'm aware
okay.
of that. But I just feel that that's a lacking thing. And
I see. Thank you.
but I will make a motion to accept the report.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That motion carries.
Can I ask a question?
10 to 14.
I assume that this is the first we've seen of any of these projects since we're at the beginning phase with the archaeological and historic structures reports. So I just wanted to make sure I shouldn't be abstaining.
Correct.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, item number 5. 1712 Anacapa Street.
Madam Chair, Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and concluded that the archaeological investigation supports the report's conclusions and recommendations that due to minimal risk of impact of cultural resources from the proposed development, no further archaeological investigation is recommended or necessary at this time.
May I have a motion?
Move we accept the report.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That motion carries. Now I'm 15 minutes ahead.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to give Ron Nye a chance to arrive to answer questions to your report. He may be in the lobby out there. Let me go out and check out.
Thank you.
I just feel bad that we're losing the character of our community.
Oh.
It really is quite unusual.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Makes sense.
5-minute break in order to wait for item number 6.
17.
historian.
My name is Rich Unterman, and I am the applicant.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobus.
Yes, Madam Chair. Okay. I need to clarify, just so that for the record, that in this particular case, the report finds that the building is not historically significant, which would mean that the replacement building would be out of your purview. It would get design review because it's a two-story building with, an addition, and so it would go to the single-family design board for their review, unless you were to find that this building does have historic significance against, what's determined in the report. So with that, Madam Chair, I turn it over to you for your discussion. Of course, Ron and I, report preparers, here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Is there anything you wish to present and any other additional information, or would you like us to go to questions?
I think we should just jump into it.
Thank you. I will take questions from the Commission.
Before the questions,
Oh,
Chair, I just want to disclose that I had spoken to the owner on the phone, but the conversation doesn't preclude me from reviewing the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the Commission regarding the report that can be given to the applicant? Oh, no, we're on the historic structures here. Seeing no questions, I'm going to ask for public comment on this item. Seeing none, we'll go to comments now from the board. Commissioner Murray?
There are three things that concern me about this report that I'm not really happy about, and that is the full description of the project is not included in the report. It just specifically talks about the house and that, and so to me it's not enough information to really make a clear decision of what the potential impact of this will be. Even though I may agree with that the house may not be significant, to me a significant part of that is that the detached garage is a feature of that neighborhood. And now the impact of the new one is going to be a detached garage that faces the street, which is not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. The other thing was a very slight, short analysis of the stonework on the property itself, and that's a very important feature of that neighborhood. Those two items really make, question the report, and I have real problems with that, because it's going to be subdivided. The subdivision, we don't see that plan, or at least a conceptual plan. That subdivision that's going to be there is going to have, from what it says on the agenda, it says that it's going to have, one of the buildings will have attached garage, the other one will have detached accessory buildings. And I'm just not sure what the impact of that is going to be on the neighborhood, and I think it will be an impact on that, especially on that side of the road. So I'm just a little troubled by the report.
Thank you. I'm sorry, this is not a dialogue at this point.
Oh, okay. Because I did bring the plans along if people want to look at them.
No, we are not looking at plans right now in this. Yes, Commissioner Curtis.
I have a question in that regard, and perhaps to Jake or other staff. The report notes that since the conclusions of the report were that the residents of the property did not qualify as a historical resource, that no further evaluation was required of the impacts of the proposed development or project on the property. Is that generally the accepted practice?
Well, that's correct, because what this report is evaluating is that individual residence. And if the residence is found not to be historically significant, then it goes out of the purview of the HLC unless you were inside of a historic district or you were immediately adjacent to a city landmark. Then you would be able to have that conversation. I agree with the things Fermina is saying, that there is a neighborhood pattern, and this commission could forward comments to the SFTB, general comments basically saying that you're concerned about the development pattern and that you would like them to strongly review that as part of their review. Once the report determines that the building the subject building of the report is not historically significant, then no further analysis would be required because we're just, like I said, this report is just covering this one building.
I guess, Jake, my concern is the problem I have is this is one property. And some of these issues are not in the report we're looking at this, a whole property. It has not been subdivided yet. And so those things are not included. And also, there's a lot of specimen trees that are also not addressed in the report. How are they going to be? I mean, in other words, aside from the house, there are these historical, to me, are historical contributors of that property that are not addressed in the report. And so anyway, I'm just raising these issues
If Ron's report had determined that a particular tree or group of trees were historically significant, then we would have found. Then we could say that we found something on the site that's a trigger, and that it should part of the recommendation could be that it be protected. Sometimes, like we do with the stone walls in front of the house may be non-historic and be demolished, but we oftentimes retain the stone walls because they're important on this part of the cityscape. But the report in this case doesn't indicate, and I could ask Ron if he did look for any historic artifacts, trees or other features of the site, and just concluded that they weren't there and therefore they weren't addressed, or if it was just not addressed in the report. But I would turn that over to Ron.
Am I allowed to speak?
Yes, please.
I thought I cataloged the various trees. I went over that property pretty carefully, and I named several. I didn't know I was required to go beyond that.
We've had a tree report done, and we are saving the oaks. We've worked them into the plan, and they're really quite nice. And the house has been owned by a church for 60 years, and it's not been cared for at all. And there have been a lot of plants planted by birds, and it's a very unusual pattern of weed trees and whatnot. We're saving the important trees. We've had a tree study done, and we're saving the important trees. And so the oak tree is right behind the house will be saved. The oak tree at the far end of the house they worked into our plans. We've done a very careful plan. I mean, we could have built 6 units. We're talking about 3. It's friends. We're going to move down ourselves. It's not a speculative thing. This is a in-town retirement community for my wife and some friends of ours. We want to be close to downtown. We have a hotel downtown. So, it's not just a casual thing to make a bunch of money. This is a thing, this is not a good way to make a bunch of money. And we are the last multifamily property moving from downtown. It's a duplex zone, and it's wedged in there as a kind of transitional zone.
Mr. Underwood, I don't think you're answering the question about the trees at this point.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions or comments?
Well, yes, I would like to add that I think we've got a very important architectural firm here, and although that's covered in the report, I look at the drawings of what's there and what's proposed, and I just see what architecture that's there is being stripped, and I certainly agree with what Vermina's saying. It just seems to me that there's more involved here than just...
Madam Chair?
I think it may be worth more than the report gives it credit for.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm assuming that we will have opportunity to weigh in on this when plans are presented to us, or is this
No,
it?
it will not come
No,
to us.
Madam Chair, if you accept the report, you're accepting the conclusion of the report, which is that the building is not historically significant. Therefore, it moves out of your purview, and because it's a 2-story building and a 2-family lot, et cetera, it would end up going to the Single-Family Design Review Board. Now, you could send comments on to them that you wish that they would consider certain aspects of the site, and certain design features, but basically it would fall out of your purview.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to bring it back if you want. I don't have a problem with that. I've had very good success with the Historic Board on 2 other projects that I've done in town, and I'm happy to bring it back. I have no problem with that.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to make a positive comment here on the report. I found it to be very, very thorough, and the item-by-item addressing each item of the MEA item by item was extremely helpful, I thought. And I have to concur with the conclusions. The clash of styles, the additions and remodels that were done over the years. I found the report to really be accurate, and I'd like to commend the report.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
On that note, I know this property quite well, and at the risk of exposing too much of my youth, this is where we practiced jug band music when it was lived in by the pastor, the assistant pastor at Trinity Episcopal. So I know the property quite well. And my take on this, although I do think that the drawings in the back are not adequate, my take is that it is a bit of a mishmash architecturally. It's been allowed to become that. And I know Mr. Unterman's abilities in terms of making sound architectural decisions. I would hope that the overall look as was intended by the original architect could somehow be retained, because it does have, although it's been broken up a little bit, it does have that feel of that colonial revival, and I think it would be a good thing. I really can't tell much from the pen and ink drawing, but I think it would be a good thing if that was somehow carried through, and if it goes up beyond our purview, so be it. But that would be my take.
Well, if I can, Commissioner Curtis.
Mine is on another subject.
Oh, no, go right ahead. I was going to try and wrap it up.
I have some concerns about the stone wall, the low retaining wall, and the wall along the driveway, and the entry pillars to the driveway. To me, those are kind of character-defining elements in the neighborhood. And certainly if this commission gives up jurisdiction over it, I would like to include in any motion recommendation to the single-family design review board that those elements be retained and preserved in the remodel and additional development on the property.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Peugeot.
I think they want to speak. I know the applicant. I know that personally, and I've read the report. And what the report seems to say is this: like the house is almost historical, but it has had these problems, and analyzes every corner, every issue. And I agree this is correct, but I kind of wonder if this house doesn't have an effect in the neighborhood. And that part of it, I wonder how complete the analysis is. The part that troubles me is that the elements that are most romantic about the house, most appealing, they are somehow not in the proposed design, including the Monterey porch.
Yeah.
Which it's true, and if you analyze it correctly, the other guys put the bay window, and it's not really very good, but still, it is a Monterey porch that one of your pictures shows the view from Anacapa Street, and it's very appealing. Then you have a front porch. Yeah, granted, it is more of the colonial style than the Monterey, but it's a front porch, and now you have no front porch, and then again the issue of the garage, the detached garage. So all of the things that make the house more charming, somehow they are kind of going away. So that's the part that I have trouble with. So I think the house has a presence. It's not. I can agree with you that the house may not quite reach to that level of significance to become a structure of merit, but it seems like it does something for the neighborhood. And the changes proposed, maybe the applicant may want to come back to address those things, to address how the front porch, the Monterey porch, those elements that really are important to the neighborhood are preserved. In that sense, I have a hard time letting this thing go. So, I mean, you're changing all the windows to something that's a lot more modern than the double hang 6-on-6. That's the part that I have a hard time with this report.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
agree. I also echo what Mr. Puglia was saying. it's there that kind of borderline. I really see your analysis. It really points out all that stuff. But what he's saying is it'll be so nice, of course, to take out all the bad additions and kind of put it back to where it was in that kind of a style. And I do worry, concerned about the detached garage. I think that's was a big charm of that house and the way it's laid out. And with the new attached garage, I just do not know the impact of that in the neighborhood would be so positive.
Are there any other further comments from the commission? Yes.
I didn't notice like a photograph of the sandstone walls or the stone walls, the retaining wall, and I didn't notice that. So I would have liked things like that included, and the what?
It's in there.
It's in there. Okay. What? Yeah. All right.
Look at the photo.
If there are no further comments, I think at this moment we are trying to decide if we wish to approve this report, and if we don't wish to, or approve this report with changes, or not approve this report, and there is also on the table from the applicant the concept that it might come back to us whether the report is approved or not.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think the issue is a little bit above my pay grade. Is whether, I would like the historians to talk about this, is whether that compatibility, neighborhood compatibility, or neighborhood, it's not that impacts an adjacent structure. It's not an adjacent landmark. I think there's that category. It's the other one, the one about neighborhood, the way this constitutes a part of a neighborhood. I would like the historians to address that. On that issue, you may not agree with the recommendation of the report.
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to also comment on that. The single-family design board does have a set of neighborhood compatibility guidelines, which include a lot of the things that you're talking about, to make sure that the new building is compatible with its setting. Architecture, unfortunately, becomes one of those subjective things where it's harder to, one person's opinion may vary from another person's opinion. But there is the design review process. This won't just fall in the cracks. There will be stringent design review. It just may be a little bit different because they're not reviewing it as an historic building which is being preserved. They're reviewing it as a building that's going to be altered. The drawings, of course, that are in here currently are not acceptable enough to go to design review board. They'll have to have something that's more complete. These are just really sketches, kind of an idea. So that it's sort of a work in progress. But you do have that option if you wanted to forward specific comments regarding compatibility to the single-family design board. That would be fine.
Thank you. Again, I think I'm looking for a motion either to approve this report with changes,
Excuse me,
or
I haven't
disapprove.
had a chance to respond to any of the comments.
I don't think you need to respond. I think it's discussion for us to decide at this moment.
I move to approve the report as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion for this motion?
I would like to add some of these concerns. I think if these concerns are important, and I think if they get passed on to the next reviewing board, they will be, it's just a goodwill, caution to say these are important, be on the lookout for these things. I just still would think that the report should be earnest in really putting the description of the project, the full description of the project in the report. So we have a history of this is the first phase and there's going to be these other phases. And I think it's just more information is good. And the trees are there. Our owner is going to have a tree plan. It'd be nice to put all that information for the next reviewers to know these are the trees that are important. So the information is complete. And just,
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would like to hear the rebuttal by the preparer of the report.
All right.
I think it's appropriate to hear that because I'd like to hear that how the loss of this structure affects the neighborhood.
Well, I'd be happy to address that, but on the sort of bigger issue here. The scope of work that's listed officially for this review is one that the applicant told me he was not pursuing anymore. But instead, am I correct, you decided against the bigger project and that you were basically going to make some renovations to the house alone. So that's why my report addressed the house and not the whole lot in terms of development and impact. So I hope that sort of clarifies something.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I ask a question of the owner then?
Sure.
Is this project description incorrect?
No, we bought this property assuming that we could build a small community for some things. And the city has thrown a couple of loops, curveballs at us, and we've owned it for longer than I expected, during which time there have been changes that all are familiar with in the economics of the world. So we have shifted from 5 units, which was what we were originally going to do. We were going to do 5 small cottages there originally, to our current proposal, which is 3 lots, a road on the north that would have then
Which
3
is
2-car garages.
In
Yeah, that's
the description.
right.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
know what Mr. Nye is talking about then.
And during the process, we're again trying to get this thing moving as efficiently as we can. So the thought with this was that we could at least start the process of remodeling the first building. We can't keep it where it is. It doesn't work. I mean, it's terribly sited. It's in the middle of the lot. Its orientation is wrong. There's no relationship to the site. There's no kitchen in the house. It's an awful house. It's 8-foot ceilings. It's a very limited modern house. The bathrooms are as small as could be. So we could at least start remodeling it. And that was the reason that we shifted to the 3-lot subdivision.
Okay, but the report as it is prepared, was that prepared with the current project description as it is on the agenda, or was it prepared and written focused on a different project description? Because we need the report as it's written to reflect the current project description.
Mr. Nye, now we want to hear from you, yes.
Well,
He did not know.
I thought I knew what the project was, but...
Thank you.
Well, but I'm not sure if it makes a difference. We're only talking about the existing structure that is there now and whether it is a structure of merit or not. And this is a report about that structure. Whatever happens in the future to that lot is irrelevant to the building that exists today. That's why I think the report is accurate and acceptable.
Not really. I really don't think so. Because it is one property, and I think the reports or whatever you present has to coordinate with what's on the agenda. And now we know there was a disconnect in the communication. So that's why we're forwarding these things. I just would like the agenda and the report to be in agreement. I mean, it'd be hard for me to accept the report without the proper description of the project.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We're starting to split hairs between the world of zoning and the world of design review. And zoning governs whether you can have 3 or 5 or however many units can go on there. Design review and historic preservation comes into effect when we have an adjacent, we're either in a landmark district, we have an adjacent designated historic structure, or the building itself was found to have historic significance. That's our purview. Once they find, if we accept the report finding that the building is not historic, whether it's 3 units, 2 units, or 5 units, is no longer, under your purview. It's a zoning issue. But I do agree with what Fermina Murray is saying, which is that, go ahead and put your comment. You have some very good comments and some very good thoughts. Put those together so they get into the minutes, and we'll make sure that those move on with the project through the design review, through the full review process, and that way your comments will be addressed. There's also you can also send a liaison to the SFDB for that project if you're very concerned about how the project is going to fare through.
If I can ask,
Also some concerns about, the compatibility and with the neighborhood and the impacts on that site for the whole neighborhood.
if I can ask the historian, does he feel there is a disconnect between your report and the conclusions you might have reached if you had known the scope was different? This is your professional credibility.
Well, unless I know exactly what the project is, I don't know.
How
what
to focus
say.
your report, yes.
And I don't.
I see.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
There used to be, we've gotten away from it, and we're probably going to be getting back towards it because of some recent case law that the City Attorney's Office is citing to us. We used to have an old Phase 1, which essentially was you just reviewed the building and made a determination the building is or isn't historic, period. And then the Phase 2 was, if it was found to be historic, what's the impacts to that, based on the project, which is the Phase 2. So, this essentially is more or less the equivalent of the old Phase 1. It's a report that analyzes a particular building and made a determination that the building is not historically significant on its own right. And so the Phase 2 really hasn't happened yet because we don't have, as they're saying, we don't have the full project description. So, I think that the safest way to handle this would be to add those comments that Firmino was making about the stone walls, the potential oak trees, etc., and your concerns about the design, this traditional design of the sort of a Monterey mix is a suitable architectural style for its setting and the surrounding neighborhood, and pass those comments on to the design review board. And like I said, you could provide a liaison if you wish to.
I'd be happy to amend the motion that we approve the report with comments to single-family design. I mean, if that'll help make the bridge between here and there, I'm more than happy to amend the motion as such.
I think Mr. Nye wanted to say something.
Real quick, if I'm not familiar with that description that's listed, but if it includes adding more buildings onto the site, then obviously one needs to consider and more, that's not a description that I have in front of me, but if it includes more buildings, then obviously that triggers a greater analysis of impacts to the neighborhood, with the understanding that the neighborhood has a 3-story complex built after the war directly across the street for it. It's nonetheless, to that extent, I can agree with you, and I wish I had done that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Peugeot? I'm sorry, Commissioner Pouchet. Well, he was talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you finished?
No, I was going to say something, but I will cede the floor to the senior member of the commission.
I was wondering if maybe it wouldn't be wise to continue this until we can figure out more. I mean, it's described here as parcel 2 would have a new 2-car garage and a single-family residence of 1,800 square feet and so on and so forth. I mean, we don't know really what this whole thing is, so I wonder if it wouldn't be wise to continue this to get a more complete assessment of what the project is.
Well, I'll entertain a motion from you after we hear Commissioner Peugeot.
We have a motion on the floor.
Oh, there's a motion.
Yeah, I think that I probably would prefer a continuance, but whatever part of the motion of the concept is, I'd like to include the Monterey porch or some other of the key elements of this house as part of something to remain. That's why I was trying to get some help from the rest of this group, of our group and the applicants, just to see how the loss of those elements affect the neighborhood. I haven't gotten a response from that yet. I think that losing the Monterey porch is a loss to Anacapa Street, so that's I'm not sure how to deal with this. To either address it in the report, maybe a continuance would be better on that effect, or to send that as part of a package of what are the elements that we consider important in this building, so that they remain as the project evolves.
I have a motion on the floor. I have a second.
Just one quick thing, because I may withdraw the motion. But so it may be my inexperience with with the process, but I don't understand how what Commissioner Peugeot is describing isn't just design review, and how that would any of those considerations would change what is in this report. I just don't see, like I said before, even if it's a three unit subdivision, even if it's a 5-unit subdivision, I still don't see how that changes what is stated in this report about this existing structure. I just don't see the connection, but
Madam Chair?
I can read the tea leaves, so...
No, I agree with what Mr. Schellenberger is saying. The issue is it historic, is it not historic? If it's not historic, then this moves on to the other design review board. There will be design review, and they will consider neighborhood compatibility, size, scale, bulk, massing, all the things that you consider. But it's considered strictly in terms of neighborhood compatibility, rather than trying to preserve an historic structure, which we've determined, if we accept the report, we've determined we don't have. If the commission believes that, if Ron Nye massages the report more, will that find that the building is historic in some way, or qualifies as a structure of merit, then that would bring it back to your purview. But it seems to me that the report's written, and the building as an individual structure just doesn't quite cut the mustard.
I understand. I'll just inject my own statement about this, which I am disturbed about the fact that the historian did not know the full scope of the project when he was doing his report. And whether it changes the report or not, I would like to give the historian the privilege of changing that report in light of the scope of the project, which would then make it consistent with our project description, and something that I would then feel better about approving or disapproving.
Well said.
Change or not, I think it should be consistent. That's my opinion. I'll wait for a motion.
I agree. I withdraw the motion.
Could you place that as a motion?
I think I need someone else to make that motion.
She can't make that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If we're going to go down this road, then the applicant's going to have to provide drawings of what it is he's proposing. You can't speculatively say, well, there's going to be 2 units back there, and then analyze what they're going to do to the neighborhood, because we don't know what they are yet.
Correct.
So what would happen is the applicant would have to go back and provide drawings to Ron Nye indicating what it is he's proposing, for the full site, and then the report is redrafted. But it's still not going to change. I don't believe it would change the conclusion that the house itself is not historically significant. So
I understand.
it's in your hands.
All right.
Jake, I think what's the difficult thing is that the house may not be significant, but there are these aspects of it that are contributing to the neighborhood. And they are 3. The stone walls, the Monterey balcony, and the stonework, and the detached garage. These are the contributing...
And the trees.
These are the contributing historic parts of the project that we cannot ignore by just saying the house is not significant. I think that's a difficulty, and we're looking to find a way to find those things. Those are important. The balcony is a contributing
And I
part.
agree.
I would like a motion at this point, because we are running over time, if I may. We're starting to reiterate things.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we continue the item to allow the historian on the project to revise the report to reflect the current project description, which apparently does include a 3-lot subdivision, before we take an action on it. And this is with the understanding that it may not change the outcome with respect to whether or not it is worthy of being a landmark structure or some other type of designation. But just to have a complete and accurate report reflecting what the description is.
I'll second that motion with the understanding that possibly the project description would change and not the report.
Yes.
But the two should coincide, and I don't know what should come first, frankly.
Yes. Thank you.
If you're analyzing a 3-lot subdivision, you've got to have 3 sets of, you've got to have a total sets of drawings, I assume, for this purpose.
You would never do a total set of with the uncertainty that is presented in this situation. We have plans, we have a footprint for each of the 3 lots that David Van Hoy did, and we have a landscape plan, and we've got all of that. And we've been through the PRT with this.
I think that was a rhetorical question on your sort of
Okay.
part, so I
I
would
still
like
will
to
second the motion.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor? Oh,
I would like to include Ms. Mary's comments on what are the most significant elements of this house and how they influence the neighborhood, which are the Monterey balcony, the stone wall, and the trees. And I think those should
and
be
the
listed.
detached garage.
And the detached garage. And those are the
Garage is an afterthought.
We are
Didn't-
now in a motion.
And it's-
I'm
it's
sorry,
not
there
an
is
appropriate
no
new
dialogue
kind
at
of
this
lifestyle.
point. Mr. Unterman, please.
Well, I see the first 3. I'm not sure the 4th. You decide. But I see those as being important elements
I
that
hate it
should
when
be
the first
listed.
thing you see on the house is the garage.
So the maker of the motion, please consider.
It's the concern that those items be addressed in the written report from the historian.
Yes, to include what are the significant elements.
I would so amend my motion then.
Will the seconder? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank
That was
you.
indefinite then?
Oh, yes. Would you like an indefinite continuance, or,
We'll be back as soon as possible.
all right, that would be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that's enough time for the historian.
Okay. 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks. He's going to come back. Great. All right, next item is item number 7. It's a Historic Structures Report for El Encanto Road. Mr. Nye.
Can't go yet. Not yet.
Will the applicants please
Frying
come up
pan
and
into the
introduce
fire here.
themselves for the record?
Up your sleeve.
Thought I was getting away.
I'm Peter Becker, the architect, and this is Rich Coffin, the contractor, and Ron Nye, the historian.
Thank you. Would the historian or the applicant like to say anything about the report before we enter discussion and I tell you not to talk?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't want to play anymore. That was going to be the easy one, and this was going to be the difficult one. This is a project that's been before you before.
Yes.
This is one, if you remember correctly, they had taken all the roof tile off
Yes.
prior to getting a photo documented, and we tried to come up with some scheme to document it. We ended up having to actually do it using a combination of digital photographs and whatnot.
Yes.
Again, what happened was the project went further than we expected it. There's as Ron puts it, a large note on the plans which states, I quote, where existing exterior plaster must be removed for repair or for waterproofing at chimneys and other areas, those areas are to be replastered to match exactly the existing plaster finish, texture, detailing, etc. I guess the key word here is other areas. In my opinion, 75% of the building is not other areas. That would have been smaller. So I was somewhat shocked when I got called out to the site by the building inspector that found that one of the smaller of the two structures had been stripped all the way down to the studs, and about 75% or so of the stucco had been taken off of the main structure. Now, the problem is what's done is what's done. Now, how do we fix it? I think Ron's report does an adequate job of analyzing what the issues are, and the architect has agreed, or the applicants have agreed to keep a couple like 4x4 swatches of stucco, carefully saved so that we have a pattern to match the stucco, so we get an existing stucco that matches the existing back on the building. Unfortunately, this was a building that qualified for the National Register. I'm not so sure anymore with all the materials that have been taken off it. But there is some good that's come of this. The windows that have been removed are actually being repaired and replaced. So we're getting the original wood windows are being saved. It just looks a little more horrific now because they're actually a bunch of windows have been taken out. But they are actually rebuilding those windows and putting them back. So there's some good that's come of this. We will make sure, based on the comments in Ron's report, that the historian approves the stucco texture. They'll do like we did with 333 Unipro Plaza. They'll do a swath to compare and make sure that we've got the right texture and sand content, et cetera, so that it matches, as exactly as possible. And when the stucco's put back on the house, we'll have that opportunity. So with that, Madam Chair, I pass it to you for your consideration. And I feel like taking a leap from the room.
No.
I will be here if you have any specific questions you want to ask staff.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission? If there are no questions, I'll take comments.
Yes, but
my comment is, if they, obviously, they needed to do this to put this house back together, and it seems to me a reasonable effort in trying to really resuscitate this older home.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, something about these windows. I think the applicants came through a lot of trouble bringing all this.
When were you thinking you were going to show that?
I'll address that. We just wanted to give you an example of one of the windows that was salvageable versus one of the windows that we've gone ahead and salvaged.
Talking to the...
It's on.
Yes.
We want to give you an example of salvaged versus one that... Well, I'm hoping that you're having a hard time figuring that out.
Yeah, this is the old original sash. This is the new sash. And this is
can you see the mullions, please?
the interior. This section, you can see how close it is. And architectural millwork is doing the work.
We're reusing the exterior frames wherever we can, and we're reusing the sashes wherever we can. We're reusing the frames wherever we can, and we're reusing the sashes wherever we can, and we're reusing the glass wherever we can. All of the hardware has been salvageable. We've had all the pieces removed, stripped, and cleaned up, and there's a lot of old crank hardware that we've been able to salvage. So the other thing is the windows were not weather stripped. The existing windows were not weather stripped, and we've been able to come up with a method here of adding weather stripping. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but we've been able to reuse a lot of the existing.
And the glazing?
Wherever we've been able to salvage the actual glass itself, we've reused that as well.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would just like for the applicant's benefit to say the appropriate way to do this would come to us first. This is the way to do it. Come to us, show us what you're doing, and get the approval before you do something else that drastic again. I think it's pretty much all you can do at this point, but that's all we're trying to bring home is that it would have been a much smoother process if we had seen what your intent was first.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Murray?
Well, number one, I'm very disappointed with the architect that this was allowed to be done without bringing it to us, because, when Post Cecil Time wrote this, it was very clear that this was not only a landmark-worthy house, it's a National Register-worthy house. So, and we have the incident with the photographs. There was that disconnect with the communication, and they were not. And I thought that you would learn from that lesson, and that nothing like this major will happen. And I just hope it won't happen again. But that just really bothers me. The other thing is, this report is really good, but I don't have the plans or the window or door schedule to see where all these doors and windows are going and so forth. And so because of that, my strong suggestions would be that you retain Ron Nye as your project historian to monitor this project. I really want to see whether these windows that you have gathered are numbered and are going to be wherever you're going to put them and where they're going to be put, and how eventually in the end they will get back what the house as it was before. Also the stucco. I also like to see, that the historian knows where the stucco is, how it's kept, because it's going to be a while before you to put that stucco on, and whether. I just think that those things are really important, that the things that are recommended here, not just take it the word of, even though you're doing a good job, I just think a historian should be monitoring this project.
Thank you. Any further? Yes, Commissioner Curtis.
A question that's maybe related to that, and maybe staff is the one to answer this. Is there some process for certifying in the end that the work has been completed in compliance with the Secretary of Interior's standards?
Well, we don't have an actual final inspection process, but for me, the suggestion of having a historian, for instance, Ron Nye, monitoring the project would give us that. Would give us that in progress. As he's watching windows be replaced, and he would be making sure that they're in compliance with what they said they were going to do. So that would be how you would do it. But once everything's put back together, you really can't tell what's under the material, so we wouldn't know if it's in compliance or not. But actually, as the project is progressing, like they have here, a monitor could make that determination. Yes.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If the Commission wished, they could condition the acceptance of the report that a monitor be on the site and that the monitor provide a final report, just indicating what he saw, and that way you'd have something at the end in writing we could keep in a file that we have a record of what happened.
Would
I'll
someone
make
like
that
to make
motion.
that? All right.
Second.
Oh, Curtis, before you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The motion carries.
Abstain.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You thought this would be the harder one.
Better run now. I know it.
All right.
For sure.
The next item is the Historic Structures Report for 1032 Olive Street.
This one breaks my heart.
Okay.
Fresh historians.
Fresh
Are you
victims. If you would introduce yourselves for the record, please.
I'm Tim Hazeltine from Post Hazeltine Associates, who prepared the Historic Structures Sites Report.
Pamela Post, Post Hazeltine Associates.
Thank you.
And I'm
have to read 'cause I
Mark
have my
Mansfield,
glasses
owner.
are
Thank you.
not in my-
Comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. Okay. If you would please turn to figures 18 and 19 in the color photographs. It's about maybe 6 or 7 pages from the back.
You get them?
It shows two photographs of the elevations of the house.
Yes.
So figure 18. Unfortunately, there's no page numbers back there, but
It's okay.
the reason I'm just calling your attention to this is this is one of those houses I sat in front of for a while trying to decide what to do. It's a craftsman bungalow. It doesn't have any exceptional qualities structurally in terms of its details, but it's got something about it, and what it is it's got a perfectly symmetrical front facade, which is unusual for a small craftsman bungalow. Usually one side is slightly bulging or the other, and it's one of the things that always drove me crazy about bungalows. So ultimately I decided, let's get the report. The report does conclude that the house itself is not individually historically significant because it's not an exceptional example of its type or style. The stone wall in front, however, should be preserved as part of the new project. And I would like to, if you decide to accept the report, accept the conclusions of the report that the building is not historic, again, this would move on to, actually this would go to the ABR because it's a multifamily project that would be replacing the little building. I would like to request that the comments be made to the ABR, that they be sensitive to the church across the street. I don't know if there's a picture of it in here.
Yeah, there is.
It's one of my
Figure
favorite.
17.
Yeah, it's figure. There's also figure 13. It's one of my favorite little churches in the city, and it's directly across the street. And so, what does happen on this site could have some impact on that church. It's not designated historic. It is on the potential list. Certainly, on architecture alone, it's a structure of merit, possibly a landmark. So, this is one case where I'd like to definitely see comment if you decide to accept the report, that the comments be forwarded to the ABR, to be, very conscious of the church across the street and how this proposed new project may affect that church. And the other reason that, when I looked at this house and, wrestled with the idea of writing the report, crafting the report, was the issue that there's about 5 houses in a row, which are all pretty much, period revival houses that are intact. And then as you get to the south end of the block, it starts to deteriorate rapidly with 2-story and a new condo project. But those were my thoughts on it. That's why I asked for the report. And although the report came to the conclusion that the house is not historically significant, and with that, Madam Chair, I pass it on to you for your discussion.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the Commission? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? I am sorry, I did forget to ask for that. Seeing none, back to the Commission.
Yeah, I have a question. I have the same question before in the other project, exactly the same. What is how does this house contribute to the street, to the neighborhood?
Do you want us to answer? I'm sorry, just for the
Yes.
process, can we answer
Yes.
directly?
When he says something only you can answer.
Track out of turn. Do you want to start?
Go ahead.
Since you forgot your glasses?
Yes.
Anyway, the nexus for how it would contribute is if that block had more integrity and more ability to represent its period of significance, then we would have had a more extensive discussion of how the house in particular would contribute to a streetscape that is potentially significant. In the case of the 1000 block of Olive Street, the construction of the condominium complex at the, I guess that would be the south end of that east side of the block, as well as on the west side of the block, at that sort of from the church down until you get to the house, the multiple unit dwelling on the corner. Most of those structures, one of them is post-war, as you can tell by looking at the 2-story flat roof apartment building. And then there are a number of stuccoed multiple unit buildings, 1-story. They have gable-hipped roofs. Those buildings, there were some earlier buildings there, but those were removed and then replaced by these existing structures. And then a condominium complex, as I said, on the east side of the block was built, I think, about 2002, if I remember correctly. So when we looked at the block as a whole, we saw individual buildings in areas that had integrity, but when we looked at the block in toto, we didn't really see that. So we couldn't come to the determination that that block as an individual element of that neighborhood would be eligible for listing. And if we had, we would have had a more extensive discussion of how does that particular house contribute to a potential historic resource, which would be the streetscape, as well as a more extensive discussion later in the report about what about the architecture of the proposed condominium complex at this particular location, which is not something that we just discussed in detail, because our nexus for discussing that would be, is either the house eligible for listing as a structure of merit or landmark, or is the surrounding block streetscape eligible, and therefore we need to discuss, does that create an impact to a historic resource? And it doesn't abut a historic property, listed property. There is the one across the street, and so that's the reason there's not an extensive discussion of those issues, because the particular structure we're dealing with we didn't feel was eligible, and we didn't feel the block in its current condition would be eligible. We especially feel that 2-story apartment building across the street that was built, I believe, in 1960-61.
It's really perfect for its period.
Yeah.
We're almost at the time to have to evaluate those, but we're not quite there.
I really like this pod wall.
So that's why we don't have an extensive discussion of how this house contributes to the streetscape, because we didn't consider that was a historic streetscape.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Are there further comments?
Well, Madam Chair.
Yes, comments. We are in comments.
Well, this may be beyond the purview of accepting a historic structure report, but I find it appalling that such a lovely little bungalow that's very much of a period and it's set in an architectural setting that's surrounded by similar houses, even though the styles may be rather eclectic, that this is even considered for demolition. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Drury.
Madam Chair.
Well, I think you've answered them.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If I could, yes. Commissioner Boucher?
I have the same feeling. I mean, we're losing these little buildings all over town. And they're just sort of part of the whole feeling of this community. And I understand why I mean, there is a mix here. It's just it's right next to a landmark, the high school, okay? Did you take that?
Well, there's actually an intervening row of private property behind this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
I was just trying, okay? But I do feel very sad to see this happen and be replaced with a 3-story building. I mean, it just really hurts. What to do about it, I can't tell you, but I just have to register.
You may have to chain yourself to the building.
Yeah.
Well, having done that once.
I was afraid of
You
that.
ready?
I know. And if I can just comment, if page 18, in which you give your summary of statement of eligibility for listing, in which you comment on its primary significance to the neighborhood, I think you answered that question fairly clearly. So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I feel the same way as Ms. Boucher and Mr. Drury. I just can't see this losing this house. I mean, it has everything that we want: the porch facing the street, the pedestrian atmosphere, a relaxed craftsman style, and Olive Street. It is the quintessential East Side street. It's where we think the heart of Santa Barbara, which is not the Pueblo Viejo, not that part, but this other neighborhood of. It's not exactly the heart of the Bangalore district, but it is that portion. And I'm having a very hard time accepting the removal of this house.
May I comment?
Yes.
Not our problem, but the issue for us is the report preparers is the ordinance is fairly clear. And unfortunately, it doesn't give us a nexus for discussing those streetscape issues like the loss of this structure. Mm-hmm. And it's not clear from the ordinance and the criteria that not every wonderful little craftsman house or even bigger craftsman house is eligible purely because it's an example of its style. Because there are, I mean, that really, in our understanding of the ordinance, is that not every structure is eligible, even if it's fairly intact. You could have an intact building that has, or fairly intact that hasn't had a lot of alterations, but especially for the more modest craftsman style houses, or any architectural type, they often derive their primary significance from being part of a larger assemblage. Yeah, so when we have one and we don't see the streetscape as significant, it's hard to find every building of that type that's, reasonably intact or fairly intact eligible.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Curtis. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I tend to share the views stated by the commissioners earlier. I think it's a shame to lose this kind of structure, particularly when I recall one just recently at 710 Anacampus Street, which was a very modest little structure, also craftsman style, which was in a neighborhood that certainly had been transformed very, very substantially. It happened to be in the EPV district, which distinguishes it. But I found the most useful comment in this report, one which is certainly dropping a lot of hints to us on page 14, that the 1,000 block of Olive contains a concentration of houses, multi-unit residential buildings, etc. notice the streetscape has undergone a number of changes. It does say, while it's possible that the surrounding neighborhood does constitute a potential historic district, such a resource has not been identified.
Correct.
As a result of previous studies. I regard that as a hint that maybe this commission ought to start looking at whether neighborhoods like this that have a concentration of smaller bungalow structures that, although individually may not have extreme merit, collectively together create a neighborhood character which is important to preserve in the town. And I'm not saying everywhere in the town, but certainly at certain key places in the town. So
Madam Chair?
it's something that I think is slipping through the cracks here, but the more each one is lost, the less you ever have of stopping it.
Madam Chair, just for anybody that may be listening and wondering about that, we currently do have 9 survey areas identified throughout the city. We've done a couple of them, and we're working on the Lower Riviera, which includes the Bungalow Haven neighborhood, which we've identified an historic district within the Bungalow Haven neighborhood. So we're doing it. It's just a slow slog with only one person, for staff. It just makes it a little difficult to get it done. But we are working on exactly what you're talking about, trying to identify where we have these neighborhoods and these pockets of historic buildings that maybe individually aren't so important, but as a cluster gain importance. And unfortunately for little houses like this, it's just a matter of economics. And in other parts of the country, they call that a starter home. In Santa Barbara, it's a tear down. And it's an unfortunate reality that the land is worth so much more than the building that we're losing these houses at an alarming rate.
Thank you. Are there any other further comments?
I just want to agree that by removing this structure, it's a loss of character. And I just want to make the comment that, I think the applicant should, though we have no purview over this possibly, but the applicant should consider somehow retaining this structure in the development plan.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Yes.
Have one. That is, Santa Barbara is full, when you drive around, of older homes that were remaining during a project with the backyard filled with parking, garages, and units that tie architecturally into the existing one-story front house. And I think this project could be successful utilizing that idea and design techniques.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd just like to say after the fact that was a suggestion of ours.
Yes, I'm sure.
Can I make a comment as well, or is it not
Can I get
Sure.
you in and we'll get back to you?
Absolutely.
Then you'll maybe more you need to comment.
Okay. Well, I think I got quite a bit of it.
And Madam Chair, I'd like to quote it's page 15. I thought I got to put my other glass on to make sure it's the right page. Page 15. G. While the house at 1032 Olive Street is an example of an early 20th century craftsman-style house, it does not embody the level of design excellence or craftsmanship that would make it eligible, so on and so forth. And that's an opinion, I think. Maybe an informed opinion, but it's simply an opinion that conforms to the idea of pushing the project forward, because therefore the property at 1032 Olive Street does not meet criterion whatever. G. So with that in mind, who's to say? It looks to me like a well-found house, well-designed, and it certainly fits the neighborhood properly. And I think every effort should be made to retain that house, whatever the project goes on behind it, architecturally significant or not.
May I have a question of the staff? This is sort of an odd question. We're here to approve the report, I understand that, but I'm hearing a majority of the commission saying there's an overall umbrella question regarding preservation of the city and what we feel is the scale and character of the city. Does that give us in any way the ability to reject a report because we disagree with the philosophy of the secretary as opposed to our local umbrella?
Well, as we know, all the teeth are in local ordinances. National ordinances have no power to forest preservation. But just so I don't get off the subject, answer the first question, which was about this being an opinion. That's why we have people like Dr. Post and Tim Hazeltine, who are professional historians. They've got 6 years of college doing this and many years of experience, and so their opinion has some weight. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Everybody can have a different opinion. I love this house. That's why I asked for the report. I toiled and toiled. I knew what this was going to come back. I knew it would come back this way, but I still toiled and asked for the report. But in terms of, the city's standards are based on the national standards. Our criteria A through K are basically an expanded version of the 5 National Register criteria. And then our additional criteria 5 through 8 are very warm and fuzzy. I mean, we could find that this microphone is historic using those. So we have the tools to do that. It's just that, is it the right thing to do? As Don Sharp commented, there are bungalows. There's not a shortage of bungalows in Santa Barbara. If someone asked me, where would you put a Bungalow Haven Historic District, I'd go to Eastlake Street. I don't know if there's about 3 blocks of West Eastlake Street that have the most amazing collection of bungalows, one after the other, high style, very ornate bungalows. So it's true, we don't really have a shortage of these buildings, but it does become a neighborhood character issue, and that's what I believe that the planning department was getting at with their neighborhood preservation ordinance, was that, just like Don was saying, there are a lot of these projects where they'll save the building in front and build the condos in the back. And yeah, you're densifying the neighborhood, but you're at least preserving the streetscape for future generations. So, there are those kind of possibilities. But again, we're looking at this report and whether you believe that this house qualifies as a structure of merit or is not qualifies as a structure of merit. And then the design review board would make those further determination as to whether the project is compatible or not with that neighborhood. You could certainly forward comments. And that's what I recommend in the beginning. I'm concerned about the church, that the whatever's built on these lots across the street from the church, maybe be pulled back or something to help preserve the setting of that church.
Thank you.
And Mr. Sharp had a very good idea about the idea of maybe this becomes Unit 1 and we build Unit 2 and 3 behind or something. So there are options.
Thank you. And now Mr. Mansfield.
Excuse me if I'm nervous or I'm a probation officer, so I have been for 20 years in this city, and so I'm not used to this forum. But one thing that the city, I know, and I don't know how this all applies to what you guys are here to evaluate the historic value of this house. I know that our city really wants workforce housing, and that's what I am, and I have been for a long time, and I feel very fortunate to be able to live in this house now and live downtown, and I walk to work every day because our office is right. And I want to continue to live there in this area. And wherever this project goes, whether or not we're able to do it or not, has a lot to do with whether or not I'm going to be able to continue to live there. If we're not able to do this project, I'm probably... And it's not all about me. Obviously, I don't want to sit here me, because it is about the city and how beautiful Santa Barbara is and how we want to try to keep it that way. And but I'm a firm believer in, there is history, and then, you develop new history. There's other history that can be developed. I mean, but if this project doesn't go forward, I don't think that, as a county worker, I'm going to be able to continue to live in this house. I'm not going to be able to afford the property tax. I'm not going to be able to afford the mortgage payment on this house. So I'm going to end up just like many of my coworkers, living in Ventura and Santa Maria and riding the bus to work. So as far as evaluating this project, I mean, I've been able to live there now for a little over a year. And we really do. I appreciate that church across the street. I love sitting on that front porch and listening to them sing, and it's a good part of that neighborhood. But I know that there's other projects. I know there was a project across the street. I mean, that church actually faces Figueroa Street, and there was a project just recently built that is directly across the street on Figueroa Street from that church. So as far as how this project would impact that church, I think that project that was built about a year ago on Figueroa Street directly across from the church would have far more impact on that church than our project ever would. But it's just a general comment, and like I said, I'm not used to this forum of speaking in front of the commission, so I'm just wanted to let you kind of know where the history of how I ended up. I fortunately was able to buy a house in Grover Beach many years ago, and as the real estate market went up and that house appreciated, it allowed me to be able to buy this house in Santa Barbara. And so instead of being able to commute from Santa Maria or Ventura, I've been able to fortunately live here in Santa Barbara. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that that's kind of where the project, the development of the project started from.
Thank you. We understand.
Okay.
Commissioner Peugeot, you wish to?
Yeah, I don't want to see us as opposing any development of the property. It's just how to do it, not what to do, but how to do it. And I think they should be pretty much along the lines of 710 and a Kappa. Is that what it is? Not 7. What is it? The little.
710 and a Kappa, the little carpenter's Gothic cottage with the unit behind. Yeah.
That one was moved forward, and something else has been in the back. I think this one is not as significant as the other one, but its contribution to the streetscape is huge, and I would hate to see it go.
I'm looking for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion, and that motion is to accept the report, that to pass or to include the comments that this home creates a significant creates terrific significance for the neighborhood, and that we can pass the comment along that this front house should be retained in any development plans.
Do you wish to add the sensitivity to the church across the street to your comment, or?
Sure, that's not a bad comment. It's warm and fuzzy.
I'll second that motion.
So if the motion means that it retains the front portion of the house in the future development, is that what that is?
That is
It's a strong recommendation to the Architectural Board of Review.
We are passing on.
Yeah, but it's not
To-
like that. If you accept the report, the house is gone. That's what happens. If I'm seeing APR and I'm seeing this with that recommendation, as strong as it may be, it's not now. So if you want that to happen, it has to be part of the report.
Well, I have a motion on the floor. I'm looking for I have a second, and under discussion, Mr. Peugeot is saying this. I'll now ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye.
How many opposed? Who and who?
Schallenberg.
Peugeot, Drury, and Schellenberger?
Yes.
And why?
Because we think that the house, the house has an important contribution to the streetscape.
I'm just concerned with the language of the motion that says that it is a significant part of the neighborhood, which I think is in direct conflict with what's stated in the report. I think the report says it does not meet that criterion, and
That's correct. It does disagree with the report that you are accepting.
So my understanding would be with Commissioner Peugeot's, but I think that needs to be protected by, in my case, voting no on accepting the report.
I think the motion would have to be amended because it is in direct contradiction to the report to say what he said.
Well, I can.
Okay.
yeah, that's all. That's all I meant.
How would you say that?
It's an issue of neighborhood character. You're not finding that the house is historic, but you're finding that the house contributes to the neighborhood character. So that is a design review board issue, which the ABR can take up under your recommendation. But designs be considered, if there's any way to preserve that or use it as Unit 1 or, some of the ideas you had. But you're making a strong statement that you believe it's part of the neighborhood character. Not that it's historic, but it's part of the neighborhood character and what makes the street, quaint.
Okay.
And there is a statement on the report on page 14 that
Yes.
acknowledges that.
Okay.
Houses such as 1032 Willow Street derive their primary significance not from their status as exemplars of the ticket style, but from their potential status as contributors to multifamily.
Okay. Then we are not in
residential
contradiction.
parts of the streetscape.
All right. So I think we have voted.
And we can't, because we're not making comments on the design, because we're this commission, we can't require that they retain that front house. I'm just clarifying. But it's a very strong recommendation.
Are there
is how
any
I would put it.
abstentions on this?
Well, has the motion
I think
language
the
changed? If it has, then I'll change my vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
4-3.
Well, I've
It
changed
is
my vote.
passed.
Okay. Fair enough.
6-3 then. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
We are now on to item number 9. Right. Item number 9, 1041 Mission Ridge Road.
I wonder if Dr. Nye will be back. Look.
There he is. Long time no see. Oh, no.
And we are approximately 40 minutes late. I am sorry. So
Let's go fast.
hopefully we can make this up. Will you introduce yourselves for the record? And
Ronald Nye, the historian.
Tom Jacobs, architect. Peter Copeland, general contractor.
thank you. Mr. Jacobs.
Yeah. This is another one where the work was started without the appropriate
Yes.
permitting process. And Ron Nye was brought on to look at what their proposal, first of all, determine that the house has historic significance, which it does. And then, because it does, he took the 10 standards of the Secretary of Interior standards and applied those to the work that's being done and determined that, and I quote, "In summary, the proposed project conforms to the standards established by the Secretary of the Interior, and therefore the project's potential for a significant impact shall be considered mitigated to less than significant Class 3 level. No additional historical review is necessary." So basically, what this report says is that the house has historic significance. The work that's being done, although out of turn, out of step, but the work that's being done meets the Secretary of the Interior standards. Therefore, under our ordinance, that means that it doesn't have a negative impact on the historic resource, and no further review is required. With that, Madam Chair, I pass it over to you for your discussion.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicants, or do you wish to make a presentation? Oh, and just a moment. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to address this project? Seeing none, sorry. Mr. Curtis.
Yes, my first question is for staff. You indicated that it proceeded without permit. Was that both building permit and planning approval, or was it, or did it receive a building permit?
It didn't receive a building permit, and planning approval would be part of the building permit process.
So no building permit was issued for the work
No,
that's been done?
they'll be getting one now, and part of that process is that we have this report that makes a determination that the building is historically significant, and that the work that's being proposed on the drawings that you have in the report conform to the Secretary of the Interior standards, therefore not having an impact.
My second question has to do with just that. The report does conclude that the changes would be significant unless mitigated. And the mitigations are apparently, although they're not listed anywhere in the report, or to comply with the Secretary of Interior's standards. So is it acceptable to do it that way, or would there need to be a specific listing of mitigation measures, and does this require then the preparation of a mitigated negative declaration for the project?
Okay, very good question. We used to identify problem areas in the project, and at the end of the report, we would have we'd usually find that it's a Class 2 impact, adverse and significant, and then it could be mitigated down to less than significant through certain measures. Some recent case law that the city attorney's office has been citing from Northern California and Los Angeles indicates that if you have mitigation measures required in order to say that the house is the impact is less than significant, then you have to go into EIR, initial study and possibly into EIR world. So what we've determined is that if the mitigations are built into the project description, which in this case they are, and as Ron Nye, as the historian, goes through the 10 Secretary of the Interior standards and determines that those built-in mitigations to the project allow it to meet the standards, and he can say at the end of the 10 standards that it meets the standards, then we're able to say, yes, it's not a negative impact on a potential historic resource or a historic resource, and therefore no further documentation would be required. If you disagree with the report, if for some reason you feel that there is a negative impact, then that would be a whole nother issue. Hopefully we won't have to get there.
Thank you. Yes.
Follow up on that. The report does say there would be a significant impact unless these mitigations were applied, which to me makes it necessary. Makes it necessary then that an EIR doesn't have to be prepared, but at least a mitigated negative declaration would have to be, unless the project description is itself revised to conform to the Secretary of Interior standards.
Well, I'm going to turn this over to Ron because he knows this report better than I do. It's been a while since I read it. And my understanding is that the mitigations are actually in the. But there are no actual mitigations because they're part of the. I'm sorry, because they're part of the project description. Am I correct on that?
You're absolutely correct, and I'm following the new policy set down by the planning department for handling these types of Class 2 impacts that can be mitigated. Historians have been instructed to work with the client to make sure that their mitigation are actually part of the project.
It's done up front rather than after the fact. It's the same result. It's just that legally, this is what the city attorney's office has instructed us the way we need to handle it in order to keep everything legal and to avoid having to write very lengthy, very expensive additional reports when they're not really necessary. And most of the time when we have mitigation, most of the time, not all the time, most of the time the applicants are happy to do the mitigations to get their project approved. So it's a similar thing. We're just working with the historian up front. The advantage to this, it gets the historian involved a lot earlier in the project, and a lot of times the historians have very good ideas as to how to mitigate or how to make a project better that maybe the applicant wouldn't have thought of, and we would have been talking after the fact rather than before. So I think there is some positive aspect that will come from this. We just have to get used to the system.
Are there any further questions?
Yeah, I have one question. Why was the stucco cladding removed? What was the reason behind that?
I don't know. Perhaps the architect or the builder can answer that.
The owners who got off to a rather rapid start on their project without the proper procedures were installing French drains around the property to protect it. There was some damage to the basement areas, and they felt that by performing the French drain, that would address that. The French drain required them to excavate, and then the base areas of the plaster walls had been damaged in that process, and so that's why they're in their present condition.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I'll take comments. Yes.
I was going to make a motion to accept the report.
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
I would make one comment. I didn't have the revenue Lois Steigenberg would never forget it.
Discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I think this is really a case where things, for instance, like it says in the plans here says interior improvements and minor external modifications. And obviously, these are not minor. I mean, they just got carried away or without, like you say, the procedure. So I guess I would, if it's okay with you, I just would suggest that the historian just take a look, make sure things are the way they are, because it's always, because of all, there's a lot of measures meet all the standards, but how do we guarantee that the standards will be met? Having had this violation, really. So I just for my own comfort, if it's okay, I would just like the historian to check out the project, make sure plans, things are okay, and
Madam
windows.
Chair?
Yes.
I would be willing to include that in my motion, that the historian be on site occasionally to check to see if all the mitigations are being met.
I second that. It's okay with the second. So I guess we want a report from the historian before final inspection or something like that. Is that what we would require? It's a written paper by the historian indicating conformance with historical conditions. Is that it?
So that could be something that could be just directed to staff. You wouldn't necessarily have to take time to review. It would be sort of the catch-all. If Ron finds something going on that's not in the scope of work, then we've got the ability to catch it. But at the end, he could provide just a brief letter report indicating that he was on site whatever days and observed whatever, and that it meets the no work in excess of what's on these plans took place, and turn that into staff, and we could put it in as a record into the file for the records.
Yes, I think the motion can be amended that way. Yes.
I would strongly support that kind of thing, particularly since this report concludes that the structure does qualify as a Carroll.
It's a Gardner Daily. Oh my God. So, yeah. Sorry, personal interjection there. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That motion carries. Thank
I
you.
promise you, no more HSRs for today. I've got 4 more waiting up in my office.
Oh,
Item number 12.
these were complicated.
East Cabrillo Boulevard. Am I correct? Oh, I'm sorry. I moved way too fast on here. I tried to just skip over 1120 Chapala Street.
It's fine, it's fine.
I made up no time whatsoever this time, so let's try. Let's get on this one.
Don't blame them.
Yes, because you're experienced and you can do it.
You know that you can trust us.
I'm sure you want to use this for your publication.
Right. We're just starting this.
Would you introduce yourselves to the record?
Victor Garza, City Downtown Parking Superintendent.
Nick Tharp, Arcadia Studio. Bob Cunningham, Arcadia Studio. It's a big project for us.
City Lot 4.
Would you like to make a presentation?
Yes. What we're talking about here is a proposal to reconfigure the entrance to City Parking Lot number 4, which is on 1100 block of Chapala Street. This is part of a bigger project where we are installing new revenue control equipment in all the parking lots. So those are the gate arms and ticket dispensers and the little columns that read the cards. The primary concern here, what was driving us to reconfigure the lot entrance, was problems we've had in the past with delivery trucks destroying the equipment. And with that, we saw some opportunities to address some ADA issues in the lot, enhance the landscaping, improve some drainage, and also install an ADA accessible and compliant kiosk. So with all that, we're asking for your feedback and comments on these drawings.
Do you wish to supplement that?
You want to go over the landscape here? Do we want to get into it? Or?
I'd like a complete picture if we could.
The last sheet. Alrighty, for the landscape, where they are adjusting the entry there.
You might want to come here while you're pointing so that the camera can see where your finger is pointing. Thank you.
In this area here, where they're adjusting the curb around the entry, I simply suggested that they put Senecio, which is blue chalk sticks right here, as a ground cover, and same in the center divider here and on this side to help carry it through. I suggested that they add some agave here, just to help bulk up the landscape. Over here where they have these two walkways for the handicap parking, cut off the existing hedge there where the dotted lines are, and add the Senecio as a ground cover as well. Oh, yes, and there's 3 trees right here. These are, right now they're magnolia trees. They haven't been doing so well, so we suggested that they replace those 3 magnolia with another shade tree. Victor expressed the need for shade and whatnot. We gave him this list right here, and he has decided that, or well, we have decided that this one right here, the southern live oak, would be the best choice for this parking lot.
Because of the shade.
Because of the shade, and it does well in a smaller planting area. And these planting areas are about 8 feet across, and we think they would do very well there.
We have some pretty successful street tree plantings of southern live oaks around town. We had discussed the cork oak, which we found to be not very satisfactory. We're not really sure why, but even though it's a Mediterranean tree, it hasn't seemed to really perform in the various locations where it's been planted. The southern live oak has done very well against all odds, so we think it's a really good tree for this particular purpose, especially without the intense maintenance that you might get on a private parcel.
Thank you. Is there anything else you wish to say about this project?
Yeah, sorry I glossed over the kiosk, but that's probably the most important aspect that I wanted to go over with you. I think we have some photos.
One of those little guys. One of Henry Looney's little babies.
Any photos of this? Well, here we can see the existing. It's a minuscule masonry structure, barely accommodates the lot operator. We're proposing to install one that's very similar to the one that's in the parking lot number 12, which is at the corner of State and Gutierrez. That one was approved recently. Not recently, but our lifetime. There were some the kiosks that were approved at the depot lot. The steel, basically steel structures. These are going to, the one that we're proposing is going to be a little nicer. I don't know if these drawings show enough detail. Sort of the elevations there.
Or painted metal?
Yes, and we're proposing to have the sides faced with this type of stone. We're hoping to get some feedback from you on what you prefer.
You mean like this bottom part, like a wainscot?
Yes. Similar to the one that's at parking lot number 12.
Do you have photos of that?
I think we do. I'm sorry, I don't have any of that.
Could you explain the two different stones? I think there's a question.
Well, basically two different suppliers. This is more of a sandstone. This is more of a man-made interior. Right.
Okay.
Cantera stone.
Any other parts you wish to present? I'd ask for public input or questions. There is none. I'll come to questions from the commission.
The stone you're using, I can't quite tell from the elevation. How far does that go up to the base of the windows, or what?
Approximately 34 inches, according to this drawing here.
So, okay, to the. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any
question about this stone sample? Is that Santa Barbara sandstone or stone?
These are both Santa Barbara.
Thin veneer. I see. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. In this drawing, this is for some other. I mean, for some other kiosk, right?
No, this is the drawing for the kiosk that we're proposing to construct.
But they would never have these buttons going down, right? If it's just the metal. I mean, if it's a stone.
This does not. I'm sorry. This does not show the veneer.
Okay.
That would cover
Okay.
all of that.
And how about the windows? Are they what, aluminum windows, or what's the?
Those windows are metal. I'm not sure if they are aluminum or not. But they would be painted the Malaga green.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question, but it involves the total parking lot. Is what you're proposing up to the standards for parking lots, the amount of planting in the parking lot? I know this parking lot well.
We're not proposing to make any major changes to the way to the size configuration or the way it operates. It's pretty much going to stay the way it is. What we're hoping to improve is the access off of Chapala.
No, I understand that, but I just felt that while you were doing this, it might be a good time to put in some trees in other locations like the other parking lots have.
We actually did take a look at that, and because of the cost and because we lose spaces, we decided to abandon that.
I thought that was what was required.
Well, if not for this kind of work, because we're only actually working on the approach to the lot.
Thank you.
What about the changing of the magnolia trees to some other species? Those are changing the tree's interior within the lot, not...
I think the nexus, if you want to call it that, for reconfiguring the lot is if we do major reconfiguring of the lot, in which case we'd have to come up to current standards. This is, again, the replacement of the trees is an improvement because we're going to get a faster growing, broader spreading, more reliable tree. It is, and cut me off if I'm speaking out of turn, I think downtown parking intends to make an effort to improve all of the lots that are substandard, but it's an issue of budget at this point, and so that's a project that we hope is in the future. We didn't actually have to replace the magnolia trees. Just since we were altering those planters, it made sense to do that at the time, since we're going to be doing a little bit of construction. But in those cases, it's merely a matter of moving a curb 2 or 3 feet. We're not changing the striping configuration at all. And again, we're trying to accommodate the new kiosk and the ticket spitters and the handicap access. but it's a minor project.
Another question, is this the block where the big bay tree is that's not been taken out, is it? It's in the sidewalk?
No. No, are you thinking of the Carrillo Castillo lot? The commuter lot?
No, it's up here in Chicago.
Walk up.
Possibly
the
At Victoria?
There, lot 5, which we brought to consent earlier, has a big pecan tree. I don't think we've got a bay tree close by here.
It's all palms that I can see.
Check it out.
Okay.
Any further comments?
Comments.
Yes, I'm looking for comments.
Okay, comments. I think this is a landscape improvement and a change of one kiosk for another. I think the conceptually it's fine. The details of the kiosk need to be worked out, and this could probably be handled at consent. We need to have a proper drawing of the wainscot, of the stone wainscot, and details of the windows and the sashes, and a little bit more, fabrication details. It's a simple enough matter to be dealt with at consent.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I want to make a comment, and that is Cantera stone, which is lovely, can sometimes get dirty and much darker. For this project, for softening the kiosk, I like the idea of using the Santa Barbara stone that you're proposing in those tones. I think over time it'll look better. I do like the change of trees. The magnolias are not successful at this lot. I live near this lot. And Quercus virginiana is acceptable, but I would prefer cork oak. But they're trying to get performance and some pretty tight planters, so I think that's acceptable. The rest of the plant material, I think using Senecio is a great choice, especially under somewhat neglectful conditions. So that's all I have.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I think that's, for a concept review, I think they're further along than I'm used to seeing. So, I mean, this looks to be a preliminary level application.
Would you like to make that motion?
Sure. I'd like to move to grant preliminary approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Drury.
Sure.
For final?
Motion has been amended to move it to consent calendar for final.
So, putting approval now with consent for final in how many weeks?
2 is fine.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Do you need to hang on to these?
The stones? Yes. If you just give them to Susan. The stones. Yeah.
All of this stuff.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Item number 11. 0 to 300 West Cabrillo Boulevard. Final approval of this project requested. Oops. We need to move this down the way.
Where is that focus just a little bit?
Yours. Oh.
Sam, how are you? Good.
Hello.
How's everybody?
Good. New year.
Get caught up? Almost?
Never caught up.
Okay, make sure your little guy is on lit so you can speak to your heart. Yes, thank you. Okay.
Public here regarding this.
Oh, yippee.
Back again, Alex. Yes, there are some members of the public here.
Will you please introduce yourselves to the record? And then we'll listen to your presentation, please.
Jeanette Cando, City of Santa Barbara Redevelopment Agency, redevelopment specialist and applicant.
Edward DeVicente, architect, conceptual motion.
Mr. Maphis, introduce yourself.
Sam Maphis, landscape architect.
Thank you.
Form design. Thank you.
All right.
We are here today presenting the West Beach Pedestrian Improvement Project. This is for final approval. We presented to the ABR yesterday, and we received final approval from the ABR. So we have specifically addressed your questions. I'm going to let Ed respond to that from the previous meeting. And then if you have any further questions, we can address those.
Thank you. I assume you're going to go through each comment, and I don't need to read it.
Sure, I've got a copy as well here.
Okay.
A couple of things that actually weren't on the minutes that were comments that were to go to other boards. The ABR, as we mentioned, there was a final approval last night. There's a recommendation from the board to look at the lights and the color of the lights. And we've gone with the green. All the proposed light fixtures in this project area will be with the green, which is the current Malaga green, and it's the city standard. Also, there is some concern about the flag program, and the ABR had some reservations as well. So that element has been removed from the project scope at this time. And really the key design element that was remaining on the project was you asked us to come back with the termination for the seawall and the treatment there when we break the wall and open it up. So I've got for reference, the existing photographs, or photographs of the existing terminations. There's two currently, one near the Bath Street connection, and the other is down by the kiddie pool, adjacent to Los Baños. So I'll just jump directly to that detail. And it'll be in the civil sheets, sheet 25. So starting on the right-hand side on section B is the curved portion of the seawall that we propose to bend, and we can refer back to the plan to familiarize yourselves with that again. And the profile to match existing and the height to match existing, and just above it in a plan view how that termination rolls out. And this is really, with the photographs, it helps us to, it was there to confirm that this is kind of how it terminates. It's not really centered on the wall, but it actually bulbs slightly towards the sand side, but more of it turns inward towards the sidewalk side. And the second section is through the bulb itself there. So this is the detail and the engineering components to construct it as well in place.
Question: would the color of the concrete match the existing, or would it be different?
We're just going with the natural gray concrete. Nothing really specified to match the existing or not. It's just what the mixed design will be.
So aging would accomplish that.
I have a question. You have a 4.5-inch radius here and a 2-inch radius here. How does that 2-inch radius go into the adjacent? Okay.
It will certainly take some craftsmanship on the part of the concrete form. I was thinking through the forms myself, actually, for the construction of this. But
Done before, though.
Are you done with your presentation, or?
I think that addresses the specific concerns of the board. I do want to add something personal here. We're finally here at final review. This project has gone on for 3 years and through many different committees and departments all throughout the city. And I want to thank all those departments and certainly the redevelopment agency for this project for Santa Barbara. It's one of our most important areas of the town. And it's nice that finally it's getting some of the attention that it deserves. And this is just one project that could act as a catalyst to that area to add some additional improvements. But I'm very excited to see it at this point before you. And thank you, board members, for your reviews and input along the way. I think we all have a project that, with all the different competing interests in the area, including the snowy plovers, we have something that'll satisfy everybody for now. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask for public comment. If you have filled out a speaker request form, I should be getting it. If there is no public comment, then I will close public comment. And I will come back to questions from the commission.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I haven't looked at these plans deeply, but am I assuming that the seawall will remain at the same height it is now throughout the length from the kiddie pool to Stearns Wharf?
That's correct. We've noted in the detail to match the existing height.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I'd like to take Owen.
Sorry, I do have one further
Okay.
question. It has a lot to do with that photograph, but it's that area, and I'll beat the dead horse. I actually walked down it a couple times this last week. That space between Los Baños and the wading pool, it's not inviting at all for pedestrian traffic. And I know I've talked to people, it's evidently not in the purview of Historic Landmarks Commission. It's more, I think, the Parks and Recreation Department, because they have that's their green sward around there. But my idea would be that it would follow that if you had a curve that would follow one of those pools, it would open up that area a little bit, and it would make it more attractive for people to walk down there. As it is, it's a little broken up visually. People actually, I've seen people walk by it and walk in front of Los Baños and find their way to the harbor that way, because they don't know that that's actually an alley through there. And it looks more like an alley than a walkway. That's my question and comment, both.
Is it a question to the applicant?
Well, it is a question. Is it possible that could be explored?
Madam Chair and fellow commissioners, I think we've come up with a solution in the design. And actually, let me take you through those key elements again. This project, with as much time as we've all spent on it, I believe we need to be all need to be comfortable with what the design solution proposed is.
For that section.
For that section, yes. And it was the key area of emphasis for ABR last night. Oops. There's so many pages in the civil now that I'm getting lost. Actually, I'm gonna jump ahead to a little bit more descriptive drawing. A501, it's the third or fourth from the end.
Is that corner?
And this was one of the main areas of emphasis for the project, and there is a lot of competing interests in this area. Parks and Rec and the pool is the primary one, and the others, actually, these ficus that are here, which are a nesting area for some heron birds that live in the area and decorate it daily for us. What we have worked out with Parks and Rec is the fence line has moved 3 feet inward and to encroach into some of their lawn area to expand the width of that sidewalk area. We've reshaped where you can make the turn here, again having to accommodate the ficus trees and giving them space for their roots. We've eliminated, there's a kind of a congested area of a bench and some other elements that stick out and make it, that don't guide you down there, and as well as a public telephone, which will all be removed. And so we've opened that and then added some additional landscaping in there to enhance. Along Los Baños,
Along
yes.
this edge to actually supplement the palms that are already there. They'll all stay, but there's additional planting in there to kind of enhance that walkway. Right.
Mm-hmm. So with all these constraints, there's also some additional lighting, that pedestrian scale lighting that we've added here. We've tried to synthesize all these competing interests, and this is how we've addressed it.
Are there any further questions or comments? I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to finally move this project. Completely.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Congratulations. Are we the last? Are we the last? Except for sign committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for removing the flag.
Thank you.
Is this your final? This is our copy? Okay. So let me move this guy down. Okay. I'm going. I'm trying. I'm going.
Well, we're moving along.
Okay, item 12, East Cabrillo Boulevard. Well, timing is everything. You know we'll be watching that. Item 12, please. East Cabrillo Boulevard. Hello? We are running half an hour late. I apologize. But you know I'll be looking to be efficient. Yike.
This is the same set of plans, only this one is
Which would you like to display for
Yes, we have
those?
these tabs. We'd like to go through these if that's okay.
Okay, then. Art.
Look at, we'll make it keep. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Public comment. Community While you are doing things, I'm going to read the motion. The last time we saw this, we had a motion which continued indefinitely and referred to the Planning Commission with the following comments. The board supports the design elements and their execution. Number 2, provide a final restudy of the wrought iron. And we must comply with the Planning Commission resolution number 02907. Whoa. Okay.
Okay.
Will you introduce yourselves for the record?
Certainly. I'm Hal Hill, project manager for the city.
Ken Minot with Appleton and Associates.
I'm David Black, landscape architect.
Thank you. Make it bright green, yes.
Okay. Madam Chair, members of the commission, we've been.
You need to
before
speak into the mic.
Yeah, you got to be really close to this thing.
We've been before HLC 3 times already, and several times in consent calendars. I know some of the members have changed since then, so we'll try to be thorough for those of you who haven't seen these plans before. We are at 90%, complete on the construction plans now, so we want to show you the details, and I want to get started then by showing you just an orientation on where you are here. If you look at these photos, you can see that the existing historic bridge railing is here, and this is the wood railing, which will be replaced with a replica of this railing when we complete. You can see here, this is Rusty's Pizza. We'll have the historic bridge railing to replace the chain link fence that's here. And then we'll show you, Mr. Minot will give you some detail on what happens in front of Rusty's Pizza and the detail of Rusty's Pizza. If you look at this drawing, give you an orientation. This is State Street, Cabrillo Boulevard, Helena Avenue. This is the location of the wood retaining wall that's shown dashed, and we're replacing it with a faux sandstone concrete panel wall here. This is the location of the replica of the 1927 bridge railing here, and here. And this area here is buried rock revetment that we will get into in a little more detail. Also at this location, we're proposing a new street light at this location that matches the intersections further down. And we actually have to move a street light that's in this location down, and it will be the same as the ones further down the line. Okay, today we're going to concentrate mainly on the retaining walls, the items that HLC was concerned about last time, the bridge railing and fencing, the design for the corner right here, and there will be a detailed design shown for this. The treatment of Rusty's Pizza, because right now Rusty's Pizza is attached to the bridge, and Mr. Minot will get into that. And then the two street lights in some detail. This just gives you a larger view of the location of the faux sandstone retaining wall here, here, and here. And to give you an idea of what that will look like when it's finished, this is one that's also faux sandstone concrete, very similar. And so that's what we're proposing for this location. This is the actual pattern A for this faux sandstone wall. And this is a cross-section of what that wall will look like. It's actually attached to pilings that will be driven behind the wall, and then these panels will be attached to those pilings, but the pilings will not be visible. All you'll see is a wall like this. This is the area downstream. And downstream, we have these rock revetments, which are actually buried under bio revetments that we'll actually show on the surface. I need to point out to you that we are actually creating new replacement, if you will, for some of the wetlands that we have, but we have considerably more new wetlands in this area than we are actually taking up down here. And if you notice down in that area, this is what we call a sackcrete wall, concrete sacks stacked along here, and you'll notice it's way back from that location. Same thing here. This is the stacked concrete wall. So with that, I believe we can move on then to the railing detail. And this is the tab for the railing detail. This is the replica of the existing 1927 historical wall. And one of the things that did not show on this drawing, we put on the replacement drawing here, which is essentially the same thing. And what we did not include on the first drawing is this finish on the end, because I noticed that just before we came to this meeting that was one of the things that was approved last time before HLC. This is shown shaded, but if you'll notice the legend says this is really open space, and that's what that means. The existing railing is actually 6 inches across. Right now code says it has to be 4 inches only, so it's just tapered down to 4 and then back out to 6 inches. So that's what
you have a photograph of the railing, do you not, the bronze one?
Yeah, I do.
This is simply a replica of the
this is the existing
bronze railing.
This is the existing that we're going to make a replica of. This is the 1927, and this is the railing that goes on top.
I see.
And the purpose for that is because it's adjacent to a bikeway, so we have to get it up to 54 inches.
Right, so the bicyclists don't fall in the water. Okay?
Is there air spaces between the vertical members?
Yes. Yes. Just like
Couldn't have that.
Just like that.
the air spaces are allowed by code. Yeah.
That's good. I remember when we were told you couldn't have
Yeah. Okay.
And that'll be on both sides?
No, just on the
That's
downstream
just
railing.
on the downstream. The idea is that's a
ocean
big
side.
drop to the water, and it's on that side. The other side is just over to the sidewalk on the other side.
Well, I'm thinking the other side of the street.
It won't be the same. No, because we want to make it as much like the historical as possible, and that this is the historical 1927 rail. Okay. We need to move on then to the lighting. We mentioned.
I'm sorry, I haven't seen this project.
Certainly,
before.
go right ahead.
On this, what is the finish? Just simple concrete, or?
Yes, it's just like this. In fact, what we will have for the finish, it will replicate this finish as close as we can. But that's the existing historical wall.
Sort of lightened, or something.
Plain concrete.
Just the concrete.
Just plain.
Plain concrete, you know, like you see there.
Yes.
That's plain concrete.
Right.
May I just interrupt? Can I note that our rules and procedures do say that unless you have seen this project before, you shall not vote or comment on a continued project. And if you request before the meeting starts that you wish a member to abstain, you would have done that so then. And during your presentation, you did say you were going to bring some members up to speed. I'm going to wonder, since this was done in 06, how many, if we would have a quorum, if we had to abstain, the members who...
I've seen it, and Louise has seen it.
Okay, I've seen it. That's 3, that's 4.
I have not.
I have not.
We've got a 4.
Yeah.
That is not a quorum.
But our procedures do allow for the applicant to consent to others participating.
That's correct.
Very
Thank
well.
you.
So would you like to consent? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Ken Minot, who's with Appleton and Associates, and Mr. Minot go over the details of pizza. And so I will trade places with Ken.
And while you're...
I have a question on some of the items shown here.
All right.
Because, like, you know, like the on the 4 stone, the sandstone pattern.
Yes.
You have some of the pictures there that you have.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm familiar with that. It's used in bridges and so forth. And one of the areas of concern regarding the where it go?
What do we do with it? Here it is.
Okay, yeah. It looks pretty good. The part that doesn't look so great is when you get into this situation, where the you know, if you start at the top and you go, I mean, that is, if this is horizontal and you follow the course down, fine. But if the wall is on a slope and you end up with this type of, you know, it's pretty.
Yeah,
You know,
we will have the top parallel with the grout lines all the way through.
Do you have an elevation with a drawing of that where you could indicate that? Like, you don't have to show it to me, but that would be nice to show in the plan
Okay,
itself.
yeah, we'll do that in the final plans. We
Great,
certainly will.
thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to read the Planning Commission resolution so everyone is aware.
Okay.
HLC review, which we are doing, design elements of bridge railing shall utilize the same design and finish as the 1928 bridge railing, which I think you are doing. Replacement trees. The projects will replace all palm trees removed as a result of project construction on a one-for-one basis with trees of the same variety and approximately 30 feet in height. Post and rail fence. A post and rail fence shall be installed at an appropriate location between the revetment and the beachway for the entire length of the revetment to discourage pedestrian access to the lagoon while maintaining visual access. Thank you.
Sounds good. No problem. We're doing that.
Thank you very much. I'm Ken Minot, and to make any of you guys feel any better, this is my first time in front of you guys with this project.
Watch out.
Yeah. Scary group here. And we've been brought in to work 6 inches away from the bridge. In fact, they've been as kind as to move our property line 6 inches. And this was the drawing that was presented to you before about how the 1927 rail meets the Rusty's Pizza rail. And there is a desire not to have the rail in front of Rusty's Pizza. Let me just pull these out for everyone to kind of look at. Because the building came after the original rail was there. And so that's what you are looking at there. We're actually working 6 inches away from that, but I do have some drawings that show this in its complete form with the building intact. We'll start with the plan just to get everyone oriented. The 1927 rail comes to this point here, and then the rail changes its configuration according to that drawing at the edge of the building here, continues on and it comes a little bit beyond the edge of the patio because the new bridge is wider than the existing bridge. So what we really looked at was taking the elements that were approved here and that were part of the bridge and integrating them into the elevation on this side here. We went through many design iterations. It's mostly a structural problem and a structural issue. What we finally arrived at is to actually re-support the corner of the patio, leave it as it is now, demolish it enough to be able to build the bridge, and then put it back exactly the way it was before, with the addition of a structural cantilevered beam that has 2 pier supports here that would then pick up a new beam that has a new pier support here that comes across and carries the corner of the patio. All of these beams, all of the walls underneath, all of that is existing to remain. The only thing that would be replaced would be the finishes on top of here. And then integrating this new cantilevered beam into the side and this that's underneath so you don't really see it. And then pulling it all 6 inches away from the bridge so that we're no longer in the creek or attached to the bridge itself. Therefore, so we brought in the sky hook. So we actually found some big nails and we pounded them into the ground there. So this is kind of the scope of our work defined right here. I'll start on this side. So if we look here, you can see the edge of this kind of stops at the edge there. We're a little bit further on. And I'll just take you to that elevation since it's... So what we've done is we have the same design element that we have here. We continue it on there, but then our patio would still go back straight as before. You can see this is the actual bridge project itself, and we're 6 inches behind that. So that shows that. Then the patio itself gets refinished once it's pulled back. The bridge is built, and then it can go back on. 6-inch gap. When we come on this side, we added a base to the building that actually kind of goes along the edge here and then comes along here so that the building comes down and then down into the ground. As part of that was a little planter here. The railings that used to be attached to the wall here are now engaged by this little base piece that we've added to the building, and you'll see that in the next drawing. So the new finishes are on the surface here, which is standard, which is the existing tile that's there now. It's just a paver tile. And then this currently is open grading. Because it now has a cantilevered beam underneath it, there'll be a tile finish on top of that. The doors remain the same. The thresholds will be rebuilt so that they match up with that level. It turns out this level is about 18 inches higher than the bridge itself, and that necessitated the railing being higher so that we didn't have people on the patio side kind of falling. But it does make a nice place for them to, I think it will show in this elevation here. So if we look at now the new bridge railing here, the new bridge railing here, and then in section you can see they've been generous enough to move our property line 6 inches back. Our new patio is here, and that's the new beam carrying it there. This is all the existing sheet piling underneath. On this side here, this is the new beam that's in here, and then this is the new base added to the building. That this becomes the side wall. That's clear. That's kind of this side wall here. The base of the building comes along the top here. And then those patios that are now here are up on top of the base that's been created. Here's the planter here. There's our 6-inch gap that will be filled in with a metal plate so that it can move. And there's another little photo here. The railings that are on the side of the building will match what's existing there now, which would just be painted black. We're suggesting everything black, and then just all the other finishes will match existing. And then I had a little photo that I put together for you guys from this side. So what you really see is this coming out. Now, it used to go down at that bridge abutment there. That all goes away, and it just comes out, and it no longer is attached to that bridge.
Thank you. Is it now Mr. Black's
Two things
I'm sorry.
that I'd like to point out. One, we had an alternative that we took to HLC last time, and we still want it to remain. In the event that the owners decide they don't want the patio anymore, this bridge railing will go all the way. Okay? Yeah.
Very
right.
good.
And all the colors and finishes are just match existing.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes? Yes.
What will be in that gap where the chain link fence is?
The chain link fence?
That would become the bridge railing.
Oh, this becomes this.
That's
this
what I was
here.
asking. Okay,
Yeah,
now
it used to be a gas station.
That makes perfect
They went away.
Yep.
Do these tabs?
Okay, let's pull this out and give David Black
I have my own set right here.
You do it the way it's easiest to do.
I want to work for him.
I'm David Black, and I have been here before. Just quickly, I'd like to go through the major elements. You know, our responsibility would involve pretty much dealing with some hardscape, development of these wrought iron fencing, some paving details, and then what it really amounts to is sort of riparian restoration of the creek, mostly as it exists on downstream side, but there is this planting area here too. So the major elements of this plan shows the existing State Street paving, you know, with the 4x4 score with the tile inset, I'm sorry, 3x3 inset, will carry on to this location, basically where the bridge structure starts. Just minor details. The two signal poles will have this standard State Street surround, you know, with the river rock and the tile border, which I, curiously enough, developed 18 years ago. But, and then there are two locations for wrought iron on this particular plan. At the south side of the beach house parking lot, on the upside of this riparian planting area, there'll be a 5-foot wrought iron fence, and this detailing is per the approved design that we showed back in the preliminary stage, and you know, essentially ball finials and arrow points, spear points, I should say. And then here, at the back of this planter being basically at the same grade as the sidewalk, essentially, and this plant through drops down, we have another wrought iron fence, this design 3 feet 9 inches tall. It basically terminates at the end of the bridge railing at this location, swings around, and terminates at the State Street Bridge pilaster. At this, and then we'll have planting here, obviously. Those are the major components on this particular sheet. This is the planting plan. As I indicated, I've worked with a biological consultant, and we've developed this plant palette, which the city has signed off on, and this will all be, it's essentially all native riparian plantings. It will all be contract-grown genetic stock. That's why it's all 1 gallon. And the palette of plant material is indicated here, not unlike what we showed back in the preliminary phase.
And how the sycamore will start also?
Yeah, because this is all going to be developed from, this is sort of classic restoration work. It will all be grown from local stock. And so, irrigation plans, move it fast here. There's going to be some turf replacement needed on the south side. This plan represents then the revegetation plan that's being proposed on downstream. Here's basically your downstream railing with the bronze rail on top. And so this is the extent of the planting that goes on. We have it divided up into different plant zones. There's an emergent wetland, a transitional wetland, and up above the coastal scrub sage. So this will not be unlike perhaps what you see at Aurora Beach, along the creek there. Just very native and very natural. I should point out. I missed the sheet. Sorry. This one.
Can I ask a question back on the other drawing?
Which one? This one? Yeah.
What is the termination point for the revegetation out there? Is it
approximately 160 feet from the bridge?
Yeah.
Is it any defined?
This is the end of the Sac Creek wall here, so it's just beyond.
Yeah, and I should point out, per the comment, there will be a total of 4 Washingtonia robusta palms. We have in the specs that they'll either be relocated, and we're showing the locations where they would go in the lawn, or they'll be replaced with minimum 30-foot trunks. So I should point that out. There's also another. Where's that wrought iron? I'm sorry, Hal. I think No, it's this one. Yeah, sorry. Okay. I'm just showing you. There's another area with wrought iron fencing. This is all solid stock, epoxy coated iron, and we have a need for short sections of wrought iron fencing at these two locations at the end of the downstream, what I'm going to call the downstream railing. And they're just short sections, more for security than anything else, because we've got 2-to-1 slopes coming up. So and this is adjacent to the bikeway, so and it's a little bit higher. It's 4.6, and so they're just right here. And they've obviously
spear points.
No spear points. Not adjacent to a bikeway.
No, it's more simplified. No knuckles either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's as much functional.
And black and finish.
Yeah, all the wrought iron is done in epoxy black,
okay.
And we still maintain the ball finials and the twisted posts. So
Since we're on wrought iron, you mentioned solid stock, but these dimensions are fairly large. The proportions of this, I don't know that you're going to have a 2-inch by 1-inch square in solid steel.
Well, I know I can done it because I've done it before.
Well, it's fine. I mean, it may just be tube steel, but that seems to have a different look to me than solid stock.
No, this is all going to be solid.
Okay.
And I think that basically takes care of it. For those that are interested too, this is the palette of plant material, by zone. It's all 1 gallon contract grown material with all the individually placed.
Pickleweed. Great.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this project?
We still have the presentation, Madam Chair.
Oh, you're still going?
A couple of items.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. This is regarding the lighting, and we can get through this very quickly. But in 2 locations, we're planning for street lights. This is the style of light that is at every intersection further east. And because this intersection is not currently lit, all the lighting is along this side and the nearest light is over here. We're proposing a light like this with the scroll work at this location. That's new. And then this one has to be moved because of the work. And we would be using the same city standard that exists all the way down the line, which is this city standard.
I need some
Is that the Malachite?
No, that's a Cobra.
No, this is what exists further down, just like that.
Ooh.
Going westward.
That's further east.
Eastward.
Yeah, going eastward, this is what is down the line.
Let me ask you a question. Where you're going to locate that light, how does that interact with the pedestrian environment as you scoot down toward the street?
Well,
that
currently,
location
somewhere
here.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
The pedestrian environment that we have right now is not as good of lighting here. If somebody chooses to cross at this location, it's harder for the motorists to see, and that's one of the reasons why.
And is there room for someone to move around that pole?
Oh yes, we'll definitely have at least 4 foot clear for a wheelchair, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, what we're doing here is going from about a 4 foot sidewalk to a 6.5 foot sidewalk, so we'll have room for that.
I'm sorry, are you now done with your presentation?
Yes, I'm done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I'd forgotten about that. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I will have questions now from the Commission.
Okay, I have a question on the railing that David was showing. I remember we had it was the railing on the top. There's a transition from concrete to steel and then to sandstone, which is really rather complicated. How does that work?
I'm sorry, what location?
At the corner of what is it? State, right? Yeah.
This one? This one?
Yeah, that connection. How does that work?
Can we get this over to the...
Isn't there like a connect? Doesn't it connect there, right? Is that where the The sandstone is right here, right?
That's right. And all it does is just butt up against it. There'll be a post at that location. It's not even connected, as far as I understand it.
So it'll be like this one here, right? Like it will end up with one of these guys?
Yep.
Okay.
As it will at the other end with the historic railing.
Okay.
Any further questions? Comments?
I have a comment to make on those light fixtures. Which are, I think, very outdated at this point. I don't know when they were put in, but I remember they used to have the State Street standards going all the way down. And then these were put in. They always reminded me of those things in the War of the World, the old movie, you know, and they come and go zap, zap, zap. So I would really like to see those replaced at some point, and we could begin with the one that's part of this project.
Well, certainly we can consider that. I don't believe the matter's been before you to choose what you'd like to have in the future in that area, and so maybe Mr. Wozniak, who chairs that committee, could bring that before you at some future meeting. And,
That would be helpful.
And then if you wish to have the new style put in, we can put in the first one.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
That sounds lovely. Thank you.
Is that possible?
Certainly it is. Yeah, we're at a stage now where we can include that in the final plans.
Good.
Any further comments?
Well, just again on the wrought iron, I think wrought iron's an incredible challenge to stay simple and stay elegant, and I'm just worried that this isn't this is too simple or too I don't know. This seems a little more standard.
Craig, which one?
It's a green button.
Just a comment on the wrought iron. I'd just like to see it be maybe a little more, I don't know, just a little more design to it. It seems a little bit standard to me. I don't know if anything can be done there. It's just a personal preference comment. Well, they're all just basically standard catalog kind of King architectural metal things, but maybe you have something else that you could do to it just to a little more detail.
Okay. Mr. Murray?
I hear you, but I was part of a subcommittee for this project. And believe me, we spent a lot of time on those wrought iron.
Okay.
And what eventually came out was simplicity. Simplicity was better because the idea was that we really wanted the wall, the bridge wall, to be the signature part of it, and there was a lot of effort that went into all that, and I think that's why we did not want anything ornate. We did not want anything that looked like it was belonged to a house. Anyway, that was just the reasoning behind all that. And it was eventually the subcommittee liked what's being proposed. So, but what you see really is a result.
Okay. I wasn't aware. I withdraw the comment.
Remember, a lot of these railings have to be no climb. Is that correct? Or the no climb fences? So
Sure.
There's a reason for the simplicity.
I think for the most part, yeah. But again, as Fermina said, this came out of pretty extensive discussions with members of the board subcommittee.
Are there? Yes?
Yeah, sorry. Well, I'd like to say that as far as the fencing goes, that's going to go on top of that wall that's going to face us from Cabrillo Boulevard along Mission Creek. More or less, it's going to be a visual thing between, there'll be that sandstone wall, the wrought iron fencing, and then the beach house, parking lot of the beach house.
Oh, with a significant amount of planting.
Yes. But that's that. Well, my comment would be that I think this is a really lovely project, and it's long overdue, and I would like to see it implemented tomorrow if possible. It's a place that's been half good and half bad. The half good is on the ocean side. The half bad is from Rusty's Pizza to State Street, and this is a lovely project.
Thank you.
Can I see a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval as submitted.
Yeah, well, I do want to make a comment, and I just want to compliment the whole team the landscape architect, and everybody who's been working on this. That native planting from genetic stock is just going to be really interesting. And it's a really great effort. It's making our city more green, taking that approach. Talk about drought tolerant. I just want to compliment the team.
Thank you.
I think it should be like a preliminary approval. I think, my opinion, with some details we may have missed. It's a big project to go on consent, whatever those may be. If you would like to see some, would that be okay with the consent calendar?
Yeah, that's preliminary approval with final to go before consent.
In 2 weeks?
Yes, I assume.
Well, will you be ready?
Well, you need to be clear about what details those are, because I haven't heard that yet.
Whatever details might be missing. We haven't, this is it, there are all details included in these sets. Like, I mean, I haven't gone through, here.
Is this actually detailed?
Yes. Well,
Can I see it?
Oh, no, that's as much detail as we have at this point.
Because it doesn't look exactly like the photograph.
Well, yeah, I mean, they should say it should match. But
So, yeah, I mean, there was kind of things that we probably, and, let's say the course of the stone, a note, I mean, that kind of thing, the follow-up of the...
Whatever other details, I mean, I just don't think, I personally haven't seen all the details of the project. Maybe you have them there and it's just a matter of bringing them back. It just seems like in this board we usually look over minutiae.
We have no problem with coming back to consent.
You said you're at 90%.
Right.
So that's that 5% we're talking about. You know more about it than we do.
All those in favor?
Was that 2 weeks or 4 weeks or indefinite? 2 weeks?
2 weeks is fine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So then, in that regard, then there'll be one person that would sign off on the detail, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Opposed? Abstain? The motion carries. Oh, yes, Mr. Schallenberger abstains.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay. Item 13,
Thank you for your
21.
organized presentation.
Yes, very much appreciated.
Yes.
Tabbed paper, great.
Doesn't always happen.
No. Yeah. 21:34. We are 45 minutes late. No pressure.
It's not like you haven't seen this before.
If you will introduce yourselves to the record.
Yeah, Paul Poirier, and this is Pat Aoyama, the resident. And Chris Cleveland's back there, also another resident of the house, if you have any questions for them.
You are here for your concept review.
Yeah, they haven't done the environmental hearing yet, so I'm not quite sure how that limits what you can do for us, but at least we can get your comments on what you're looking at for the archaeological report.
I see.
We need an architect.
So we're proposing a 499 square foot pool house with a 600 square foot pool in the backyard, which is currently a flat graded lawn area.
Want to point at anything while you're talking?
Sure.
Okay.
So there's an existing carriage house, which is here. We remodeled it in 1994. The main access is from Mission Ridge Road, which is down that way. There's a private driveway that comes up, and there's another property down here that I think you guys have been looking at some additions to. But basically, you cannot see the house from the street frontage. We provided you a photo of that, which is just a view of a driveway, because you go around this corner with a bunch of bushes to look at the front of the house, and then you go around the house to get to the pool house in the backyard here.
Would
So,
you like to go through the photographs and show us?
right. View of the project from the street. View of the private drive. Some great gates there. It's right next to Marymount School. It was all part of that original estate.
Black.
Yeah. This is the front. Kind of the front courtyard here. Which would be over here.
Yeah, right.
Right. This is the side as you go down the hill. Here it's the upper level is at grade here. The basement level is at grade down here. So you kind of go down and you can access the back side of the house there. This is the back side of the property. It has a sandstone foundation. We remodeled it in '94. We did a seismic retrofit so that we could maintain all of the existing sandstone and made a separate support structure inside to maintain the character of the house. So really the inspiration for the pool house, which is at this same lower level, is to pick up on some of the detailing of the existing lower level and some of the detailing of this little outdoor kind of sitting area porch over here. So we're going to make another porch that's part of the pool house, and then you'll go through some nano wall under the inside of the house, little pool house over there, which will just have like a little bathroom and a little maybe guest bedroom over there. We did some nice Schlegel-y looking faux sandstone concrete paving, so we're planning on doing that in some areas as well, and this will be what the pool coping will look like. And interestingly enough, I was just looking at a photo of the original pool over at it's currently down in Marymount, and they had a lawn, it looked like, going right up to the edge of the pool coping. So it's not going to be your typical pool deck going up to the edge of the pool. It's going to be kind of a 18-inch, 20-inch pool coping made out of Schlegel-y sandstone that goes around the edge of the pool up against the lawn when we're all done. Here's the site. We staked out where the pool is with some stakes, and the pool house itself is down here where these kind of low little retaining walls are. There's like a humongous historic one that's down here, and we're going to engineer the one edge of the pool so that structurally it's like an infinity edge, so that we're not going to be imposing any kind of a load on the historic wall, because it's our intent to maintain that. Some of the existing trellis work in the front. Here's the front of the house as we remodeled it. We're going to be doing something similar to some of those lanterns on the building that we're proposing as well. And here's the site plan showing the existing residence, the lawn. The pool will be located on this lawn, the pool house kind of down at the end of this lawn, down at this end. So here's the pool house, kind of a wet bar down here, pass through to a little patio area with barbecue, kind of a room for a TV with this opening up so that this is kind of a space for people to hang out in. The pool's right down here in the lawn. There you have it.
You're not really, sorry.
Flat roof on either side. We're thinking about putting some flat solar pool heating stuff just on the flat part of the roof, and this pitched hip part of the roof. Again, we're still considering using flat concrete tile to match the flat concrete tile in the building, but we want to hear from you finally now that you can comment officially on the building. There was a lot of discussion about whether we should do two-piece clay mission tile or not. So you have that drawn up both ways for you to look at. So view from the pool is this view. It has two flanking trellises on either side of a stuccoed element. This whole back wall is all real sandstone with a little concrete sill, just like the existing building. This is showing the flat tile on the hipped roof here, a little outdoor fireplace out here underneath this exterior area. This is facing south. End elevation where the barbecue would be. This is a little counter with a pass-through window to the kitchen. Again, a nano wall. All these windows would be able to fold up over to one side. Barbecue area is out on this side, little archway to go in to get in the back door to that little wet bar area. Downhill side has a screen wall. There's going to be an outdoor shower over here if they go to the beach or wash their dogs off. Over out here on the outside, and you can go in. There's a little changing room, bathroom there. Bedroom. Then on the uphill side, we've embedded it into the hill, so it's actually going to be retained back on the back side with the retaining wall.
Where's the pool equipment?
Pool equipment's down below the historic sandstone wall, kind of out of the way. I'll show you that on the little stucco wall enclosure for that, which is down here. We put the equipment with an enclosure, and that's quite a bit below the pool. It's downhill, but our pool guys told us we can put it down there, and that way to be able to enclose it, we won't be having it up on a high part of the site, broadcasting that noise out. We'll be having it down low, be able to control it a little bit better.
Spa motor.
Right. Probably not a roof. I think we can do that, but there's existing retaining wall on this side that make a barrier, and there's a huge, pretty tall wall back here. Okay.
Excuse me, if you don't mind, I just want to see.
I think it's going to be more in relationship to the
back.
Yes, but the whole building exists, and I'd like to see the whole building.
So we're kind of making a bookend piece at a smaller scale to kind of these elements here and that part at the back there. So existing house has kind of a concrete sill in the sandstone wall with a wood window.
May I ask a question regarding the proportion of your windows and how they relate to the existing house?
Most of the windows would relate to the proportion of these smaller windows, this window, that window, but where we do have the kitchen counter, we're trying to get, for the most part, that thing to be an open hole for people to pass stuff through from the kitchen. So I suppose it would be consistent with that proportion, which I don't think is you're looking for consistency. But again, it is just on one side where we don't have a typical small puncture.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The elevation of the pool of the pool cabana is more or less the same elevation as here, right? It will be like location
Yes.
right there, right?
Yeah. Grade-wise.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Well, I have a question about the process. Are we allowed to do anything with this to take it out of concept, or?
I think we can only make comments at this point.
Okay, that was my
Comments
question.
only because we're waiting for our phase
Okay.
one.
I think our goal is to find out, your pulse on the thing, and when we return, we'll hopefully dial it in enough where we can get preliminary and move ahead. This has been-
Is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment on this project? I'm seeing none. Are there any further questions about this project?
Are you going to use the mission tile?
We prefer to use the flat tile, but we did draw it up both ways for you. The issue and the reason we do have a roof is because the bedroom is right here, and the nook is here, and the living room is here, and the roof is going to be at this level because the finished floors are approximately very close. I think they're going to be a little bit lower. So you'd be looking down right on top of this thing. So looking down on the top of a flat roof wasn't really something that, from the view from their residence, is not going to be like embellished by the presence of the pool house. So by having a roof surface there, we thought that it'd be a little bit better to look at. Also shield the view of if we have pool solar on the other side, in a smaller section. The other thing is there's a section here with the flat tile, and around the corner right here, that is the flat tile, and on the plan, it's on this element here, and it's on the second floor element right here. We're going to have it right here, so it's going to be, when you're coming down these stairs, you're going to see this thing, and then you see something that's completely different.
Would you like to see the other elevation? Yes.
Just to refresh our new members, we had the structures report. There was the opinion in the structures report that the barrel tile, although not found on the pool house, was the predominant roofing material for the estate. That's why they were going back and forth as to whether flat tile or barrel tile. And but the pool house, the main carriage house itself does not have barrel tile roof on it. It has the flat tile.
Thank you.
We took a straw vote on this, and I don't recall.
You modified the report to allow us to come back to request flat, but you guys maintain the ability to make the decision for us later, so you didn't really say yes or no. You said, some of us want it, some of us don't.
Right.
We'll talk about it later.
Split vote.
So.
Yes.
What is the reason for the preference for flat tile?
Yeah, there is no clay tile on our parcel, and the original estate includes the pink house next door. That's super modern, so it hasn't consistently been used throughout the neighborhood. If kind of that original estate had clay tile all around it, I think maybe it makes some sense. But, we're just trying to stay consistent with the existing building. We're matching the rafter tails on the little laundry room pop-out on the side. And, just seems like it would match the existing house more than...
And the color would be of the flat tile?
It's kind of a gray color, so it's like a cement slate-looking thing.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention to Paul, somebody came in and looked at the plans a couple days ago at the counter, and we noticed that the preliminary plan check hadn't picked up, and maybe it's, I didn't look at it, but a colleague noticed that there was no fencing around the pool, the required building department fencing that they're going to, of a certain height, and I don't know if it's on the plan, but just a heads up that
Right. There's
that
some
would need to
existing
be on there.
retaining walls that exceed the height, luckily. So we don't have to put a additional
Okay.
unapprovable
Thanks.
fence on top of the retaining wall to exceed 6 feet in height. But, when we get down to the health safety thing, we'll get to the bottom of all that stuff.
Are there any further questions or comments?
I just have one comment. I like everything in the comment. I think it's very well done. We're going to use a what's it called, a jack arch like these ones over that window there, right? Like that detail, which you seem to kind of.
Yeah, I tried to keep
I wonder.
stone walls.
It seems to me that it would look a little bit better if those windows were taller. The
Do you see
kitchen,
it?
yeah.
You probably push them up. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Especially with such a stonework above, it looked like a puny hole for such a lot of stonework supporting it.
Right. Right, we'll make it more, the height to width ratio of the individual panels will be a little more rectangular, so I agree with that.
Any other comments other than looking more closely at some of the existing details of the residence?
Madam Chair? This is not a comment, this is a question, I suppose. Will there be additional landscaping around the pool house? I know you have a number of mature trees on the property, I'm assuming you...
Right. We'll be developing the landscape plan for your next go-round. We just, we've been up and down, one side down the other with this thing, so to make sure that the concept was palatable to the board before we proceed and spend more money on the landscape architects.
Is there a comment about the flat roof tile versus the mission barrel? Okay.
I guess I'm leaning towards the flat tile roof, or to be honest with you, I would just put a regular, composition kind of roof, because it's a pool house. I don't want it competing with the main house. You want it to be completely subservient and really should disappear in my sense. And so to put a fancy roof on it, it's just going to make it stand out. It's just going to look like a very contemporary feeling. So I would just, the more simplified, the better. I don't know. I wouldn't even use the tile. I would just use, composition that you would find in a very simplified building. Those are my comments.
Any further comments? I think we're going to give you a continuance pending your environmental assessment, and when you're ready to come back to us for
Just get in the pipeline.
for approval, with the comments that please look a little closer at the relative proportions used in the main house when you're looking at the details and proportions of the pool house, and there is some sentiment that the flat roof tile or an even more low-key roof is acceptable.
Try to bring you a sample on what we're planning
Is that-
on doing there.
Is that, we need somebody to make the motion and vote and all that? 2 weeks or 4 weeks?
It's up to you guys.
What's
We're going to get the archaeological
Oh, the
report
ARC,
at the end of
that's
the week.
right. So indefinite. Make it indefinite.
May I have a motion for an indefinite from Mr. Peugeot and Mr. Drury?
We might have the report done by the end of the week.
Yeah, it'll be done at the end of the week, but I don't know how long it'll take this process to allow us to come back.
Next item, 1727 Prospect Avenue. Okay.
Sorry?
If you would introduce yourselves for the record, and you might want to point this towards you. Here. This is a new review.
I'm, excuse me, Eric Swinemson, designer. Phil Larson, homeowner.
Flip around us. Would you like to give an overview with the photographs?
We're on Prospect Avenue. I think the Prospect Avenue is up here. This site is a 17% slope, sloping down. This is the garage in question. This is it.
I see.
The dashed line here represents the existing garage. It's right on the property line. The board has seen, or at least consent, I think Don and Allison.
The whole board
have seen that.
also.
Yeah, the main house. We've rebuilt or we're in the process of redoing this second unit. We have approval to redo the siding and windows on the main house. So phase 3 is going to be to demo this old tired garage, which has no historic significance based on the report, and rebuild it in a new location, 3-foot setback, a complying 2-car size, and then matching the architecture of the rest of the project.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, the report, structures report did find that the garage has lost its structural integrity.
I'll say.
It's
pretty
sort of a dangerous situation.
It's cute.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks.
We're proposing actually I'm not sure if it's going to be part of this proposal or not, the solar panels on the south facing away from the street on the roof of the garage. That's why the orientation is 90 degrees from the way it is now, because we get this perfect south slope on the downhill side there.
Are there any, are you done with your presentation?
I think so.
Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'll take questions from the commission.
Just stepped out for a second. I missed the presentation. This is just for the garage. This part is only for the garage.
Just, yeah.
Correct. And do you have the picture of the garage door? Does it represent anything else that we are trying to reproduce, or
well,
not?
There's no door there
there's
now.
no door now.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't know how long.
And the location of the windows is kind of arbitrary. It has a specific. It's something that you really, why the windows are like that. It's because
I'm a perfectionist and I like them certain distance inside on the south-facing side and one on the other side to complement some views that are just very beautiful views of the property. And the two on the south, actually, you can look out and probably see the Channel Islands at a strategic angle. So why not take advantage of that view? No, I stacked the windows. I guess that's just an anal thing that I've asked Eric to do for quite a bit of time.
Well, but they are fixed windows, right?
They would be awning windows. I wouldn't make them
windows.
fixed.
They're awning windows, okay.
So,
And you have other awning windows in the house, or
I do.
No?
Uh-huh.
Where?
Where is that?
The awning windows would be on the main house or proposed on the main house. You have to go back to some different elevations to see some of those in place.
There's one on the opposite side of this, the other elevation.
The house has a myriad of different types
I've seen that
of
at
windows.
consent at one point. Yeah.
I see. So
It's
are
going to
you
look better
saying
than that.
that
Right. Yeah, you can review that. We saw that at consent.
Right.
Yeah. No.
The reason I'd use... go ahead, Eric.
If you keep going.
You're trying to see where the other awning windows are?
just looking, you use so many of these same rectangular proportion windows, we're kind of wondering what the model is, I guess.
It's not like it's not like it's one. It's like sometimes you find a window like that on a bathroom or on some. In general, windows have a different proportion. That's why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to be curious.
When a car pulls in there, I don't want a window down anywhere near where the bumper is. So I want them up just for a view sequence. And the ones facing here on the side, because of the what I'll call a pregnant two-car garage, that's probably a perfect area for a small workbench, or that's maybe a place where you keep your bicycles, motorcycle, all sorts of other things other than going down a bunch of stairs to access underneath the garage or the main house. So a good place to keep some stuff in a very two-car garage where parking is really at a premium on this street. Yeah, so I initially tried to see if there was an avenue for a 3-car garage, but transportation shot that one down. Just try to do something to get one additional car off the street.
Here's a reason why the header is that low, why it could not be raised.
That low on which?
Well, any of these windows. I mean, if they...
Well, I think they're 6'8".
Okay.
But
And the band is for. I mean, I imagine you're using the hardy shingle.
Correct. Yeah.
Just trying to do something to break it up. We have a band on the main house as well over the first floor, so.
Are there any further questions?
So is this garage, this is a suspended slab or something? It looks like there's a big change in elevation.
There is. It's going to be raised TGIs with a 3-inch concrete floor or something like that.
Yeah.
Some other floor area.
Well, are we into comments?
No, I'm asking for questions. Still.
Okay. The solar panels, will those be seen from the street point of view? Where the
Not in any way. No, it'd purely be the house that you would see it. It'd be invisible from the street and the sidewalk.
Even
At any angle. At any angle.
there's some vegetation.
There's a hedge in the front, but this point is back. These panels will be across this, and there's a hedge here. I don't think you'd be able to see them.
Hedge, I see. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I'll take comments.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I know it's not potentially historically significant, but I want to make a comment that my mother and father lived in that cottage in 1939 when they first came to Santa Barbara.
A or B?
Huh?
A or B?
A. B was was lived in by a lady of independent means, I guess is a way of putting it. A businesswoman of independent means.
I was visiting that thing since I was a 5-year-old kid.
Really?
So I probably took my bike right on by wherever that was.
That's my comment.
Okay. Any comments?
Just on the wainscoting and the way that the first floor and second floor of the garage building are interacting as you turn the corner from the north elevation and come around the building. I'm not sure that it looks fine on the north elevation. Turn that on again. Just to this eventually. On the north elevation, I think it's a good idea how you have the wainscot stone base there, and that has a nice proportion to it. But I think as you go around the corner to the south elevation, that the rhythm doesn't seem to work as well. It looks a little top-heavy to me, just with the banding, and then it just looks a little monolithic with a weaker sort of wainscot base there. And I maybe want to study a little bit how that upper and lower floor interact. And also on that note, just that building might be able to use some articulation or some cantilever to give it some bit of separation. Just a comment. Take it for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Well, just
Any further comment?
I think some of the window detailing needs work. They're a little bit too stable, maybe too simple. Seems like some verticality could be studied there. They just seem too staid.
Thank you. Any other further comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. I think this project will benefit a lot by the garage by using the materials a little bit differently. In this case, you have almost like a pancake. You have one, and then breaking the bar. You have another one, then the third one. Stone, traditionally, like in the main house too, is used usually for the basement level. You have the basement stone, and then you build the other thing. And if you can keep your stone to this level right here, when it starts going below grade, and then everything below grade is some kind of a stone, and everything above grade is your shingle. That would be much more traditional pattern, which you see in the same neighborhood, in the up and down the street. I'm sure you see that kind of a thing. And still having all these different elements, you got 1 and 2.
So would you take the stone up to the band, or?
Maybe up either to the band or shut it directly to right there, to no band. Just like it won't even meet that. The other thing is like maybe you need this window perhaps, or maybe this one could be different. They all have to be the same one. I think that's what Adam thinks. Like, why are they all the same? Maybe it's something a little bit unusual. It's not very important because they're not very much. I mean, this is what these are the angles that people will see the most. Yeah.
Actually, my first thought that didn't get to Eric in time, but this side window east elevation, I wanted to change that to the same diamond pattern that is in the front of the house, just to keep it per theme.
Yeah. That is. I remember seeing this on consent, and I think we worked out all the patterns to use those diamonds. Do you see it again?
I saw it after that. Yeah.
And it just seemed like it was much more consistent with what you had. Not so much the prairie style, which this is what this is called, prairie style. It was more of the hexes that I think you had been more consistent using that kind of a detail. And I think it's more special to your house than this. I mean, this is, you can buy it in Pella Window makes that. And I think this is really your design. I mean, like the one very peculiar to the house. So that makes it more valuable, more special. So those two things, I think some variation in the fenestration will improve the project. And simplification of materials, like I mentioned. One more thing, this hardy shingle also comes, I mean, you can have the board, which makes it easy because you put the panels against the board and easy installation. But you can also overlap. I think you can still have your fire protection by having the more traditional shingle corner.
Woven, as they say.
Yeah, you may have to combine the panels with the single elements. But it is a more classy corner. I think you should study that one.
I've given
if
that
I can
one
ask, please, no dialogue. At the moment, we're making comments, and so it would be better if there was no dialogue between the commenter and the applicant. Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just on those diamond windows, those were specifically called out in the structures report as being a major character-defining feature of the building.
Yes. Thank you.
I also want to say, I appreciate your efforts. I think this is going to be a good improvement for the street. So, that being said.
Further comments? This is here for a concept review. We do need environmental assessment and staff hearing officer. I'm going to summarize the comments. Thank you. It's a good effort. I think we just heard that. There is, I think, a consensus that we'd like you to look at a redistribution of your materials in a more traditional manner, which would lead to a simplification of the use of materials, which I think is more desirable. We're also looking for more attention to the type of window detail and proportion and patterns that are being used in this building. Although it is subsidiary, it should still be related to the main building.
I'll make a motion for just for a continuance, because we can't give you any kind of approval right now. Right, and maybe when it comes back, maybe it can go straight to the consent calendar and we could take care of details, huh? Okay?
All those indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer to return to consent.
Yes.
For final.
Final.
For approval, because it hasn't gotten prelim yet.
Yes, right. Yeah, that will be for preliminary and final approval.
Okay.
It has to have comments to the staff hearing officer, right?
Well, positive comments or
Well, with positive,
with
positive comments. Yeah, with positive comments, right? That the design of the structure is compatible with the neighborhood, and it will be an enhancement over the present conditions. Are that good comments? Okay.
Good.
And my comments to be transferred to the final review by consent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, 110 West Sola Street. Yes. Oh, and he's just going to drag it out, I know. Is there... Oh, okay.
Now we get tough.
Yes.
Oh, great.
This is...
We haven't denied any crossings.